live.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. I'm just going to wait one more minute because I see a lot of people jumping in right now. I think we're missing just one person. And before we get started, I did want to make an announcement that Board Director Allen will be out today with 2 sick kiddos. So we will miss her today. And our student rep as well, Devlin, will be attending a little later in our meeting. Okay, so I see all of our board of directors now on here. You see all of our budget committee friends joining as well. Okay, we are calling into order the Hillsboro School Board Directors meeting. Our first item on our agenda is to have our budget committee meeting. So I am calling to order our budget committee meeting. And the first motion that we have is to approve our proposed agenda.
I move that we propose the budget committee agenda as published.
Second.
So it has been moved by Martin and seconded by Adira. Is there any further discussion? Okay, this time around, I know we're going to do our voting just a little bit differently than we have been doing, where I was asking people to let me know their vote in our chat. We're actually going to be doing a roll call. So when I call your name, please state your vote. Martin Granum.
Aye.
Lisa Allen is absent. Sheehan Kim.
Aye.
Yadira Martinez.
Aye.
Jackie Spross.
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Aye.
Don Wallace.
Aye.
Michael Smith.
Aye.
Ina Carlson. I don't think Nina has joined us, so I will mark her absent. Christine Adams Wanberg.
Aye.
Monica Uribe. Don't see her on here, so I will mark her absent. Kim Strelchin is also going to be absent today. Kevin Murphy. Kevin Murphy, can you repeat your vote, please? Oh, okay. I'm seeing you. Your audio is a little off, just FYI. Okay, the motion carries. Our next item on our agenda is to go over our committee's responsibilities, roles, and processes with Michelle Morrison, our Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Erica. We'll go if we can get the presentation back up. That way folks can kind of follow along. Thank you and welcome everybody. Before we move to the next slide, I would just wanted to kind of make a note that I was reviewing last year's budget committee materials, and we are in a very different position this year than last year. And for that, I'm very thankful. So thank you for your support as we move throughout the budget year and as we look ahead to the future. So happy to be here tonight. Thank you for your time. Please move a slide ahead. All right, so this is the agenda for the presentation tonight. So we're going to look at the Budget Committee roles, responsibilities, and process. And then we're going to move into some very familiar looking information that we've been sharing throughout our work session Budget Committee updates so far for this year. Talk a little bit about Mike will give his budget message kind of in the middle, and then we will wrap this up with some discussion and public input. Please advance. And so this is old news to the Budget Committee and board members, but I wanted to just reiterate for the community that may be viewing. Our Budget Committee is made up of 7 elected school board members and an equal number of appointed community members. Budget Committee members serve for 3-year terms, and they're staggered so that they're never all on or off at the same time. Our Budget Committee members must live in the district and be registered to vote. And in Hillsboro, which is a little different than some of the other districts in the state, our Budget Committee is engaged early and often as key communicators and to receive information and to bring back information that they are hearing as well. Please advance. So we have a couple slides here about the responsibilities of the Budget Committee. As we move through the agenda, there's an action item to elect a committee chair, receive the proposed budget message and supporting documents, review, discuss, and provide feedback on the proposed budget, approve the proposed budget as it is or as revised by the committee during the meeting, recommend a level of spending for all funds for the upcoming year, and specify the property tax amount rate for all funds in the approved budget. Please advance. The Budget Committee does not approve new personnel, employee contracts, or salary schedules. Rather, the committee sets the level of spending by fund and major function. So I think that that's an important distinction for folks to know is they're having discussion and receiving public input, that the Budget Committee doesn't necessarily manage all of those things. And once the budget is approved, the school board will hold a public hearing, and ours is scheduled in June. And again, receive public comment on the approved budget and formally adopt the budget, again, with or without revisions. The school board may make adjustments to the approved budget, and we usually do late in the year. May is typically the month that we target if we need to make any appropriation changes within the budget, but it can't exceed 10% within the major fund. And then the committee needs to be available if the school board should feel it necessary to reconvene. And so a situation would be an additional meeting, whether it's informational or whether a supplemental budget is required to move through the school year. And we haven't had that situation in Hillsboro, but it is something that would be required if the appropriation levels change more than 10%. Please advance. Are there any questions about the committee design or the roles and responsibilities before we get into the budget message? All right, with that, I think on our agenda, we need to have our election of the Budget Committee chair prior to the budget message being delivered. So Erica, I'm going to pass this back to you.
Thank you, Michelle. Budget Committee members per Board Policy DBEA Budget Committee. The Budget Committee will elect a presiding officer from among its members. Nominations are now in order for the position of Budget Chair. Are there any nominations?
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Director Shi-In Kim.
Okay, Shi-In Kim has been nominated.
Second.
No seconds are required for these nominations, just to be aware. But are there any further nominations? Seeing none, I will roll call again for our voting. Martin Granum.
Aye.
Lisa Allen is absent. Sheehan Kim.
Am I allowed to vote for myself?
I believe so. I'm
Or do
double
I
checking with
abstain?
those. Yes, you can. Okay. I
Okay.
will mark that on it.
Then aye. Thank you.
Yadira Martinez.
Aye.
Jackie Sprouse.
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Watson votes yes.
Don Wallace.
Aye.
Michael Smith.
Aye.
Nina Carlson is absent. Christine Adams Wanberg.
Aye.
Monica Uribe is absent. And
I'm
so
here.
is, oh, you are. Oh, yay.
Yes. Aye.
Thank you, Monica. Kim Strelchin is absent. Kevin Murphy.
Aye.
Thank you. Your audio's back.
Yeah.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Okay, so now that we have a newly elected board budget committee chair, I'm going to hand it over to our director, Sheehan Kim, to proceed with the rest of the meeting agenda.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So now, Michelle, I think we're taking it back to you to review the budget outlook and the proposal. Oh, excuse me. Mike, I'm giving it to you for the budget message. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sheehan. I am happy to bring to you the budget message this evening. And as Michelle mentioned, we are very pleased that we're not in a situation that we were in last year. Still a number of unknowns, but in a much better spot than we anticipated that we might have been. So in accordance with ORS 294.391, I submit to you the Hillsboro School District 1J proposed 2021-22 budget. Heading into the 2020-21 school year, we anticipated a shortfall of approximately $4.6 million. We intended to absorb that shortfall by funding eligible expenses with a portion of the $16.5 million in student success investment dollars. As the spring wore on, however, there was increasing uncertainty over the impact COVID-19 would have on our funding situation, including the availability of the SIA dollars. So the Hillsboro School District implemented 3 cost-saving measures in late spring 2020. 1, to institute a spending freeze, 2, a hiring freeze, and 3, participate in the work-share program for all employees from May 15, 2020 through July 24th, 2020, in which employees were furloughed 1 to 2 days per week rather than being laid off. Employees received their regular pay for the days they worked and work-share unemployment pay for the furlough days. Employees also received $600 per week from the Federal CARES Act. These measures saved the district approximately $3 million that was then available for operational expenses in 2020-21. The Hillsboro School District also staffed schools at a 3% reduction in anticipation of enrollment loss due to extended school closures and the comprehensive distance learning model. During the 2020-21 school year, enrollment is down approximately 1,000 students from the previous year, 2019-2020. During comprehensive distance learning, a concerted effort was made to keep staff safely working by repurposing some to support students and some to work on maintenance projects and continuing to utilize the work-share program for select employees. The Oregon Employment Department work-share program streamlined unemployment benefits to eligible employees that had a reduction in 20 to 40% of the regular work hours while maintaining a pre-reduction level of insurance benefits. Areas of saving during comprehensive distance learning included transportation, utilities, substitutes. Areas of excessive cost included technology, hardware, licensing, training, support, access to the internet, and meal delivery. The state was ultimately able to deliver $150 million of the initially anticipated $475 million in SIA funds to support districts, which meant Hillsboro School District received approximately $5.25 million to help support eligible expenses in the categories of instructional time, student health and safety, reducing class size, and well-rounded education. The Hillsboro School District expects to receive approximately $38 million in federal coronavirus relief funds, elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds, or ESSER funds, $13 million that need to be spent by September 2022, and $25 million that needs to be spent by September 2023. These funds are intended to support districts for expenses that wouldn't exist if it were not for the COVID pandemic. For example, technology, personal protection equipment, additional staffing for distance learning, additional custodial support, programs to support and accelerate student learning, etc. You'll hear more about those this evening. These funds will be central to our efforts to mitigate the negative impacts of the pandemic and successfully transition students back to full-time in-person instruction. We will also receive approximately $7.2 million from the Oregon Department of Education for the implementation of summer programs that specifically support Black, American Indian, Alaska Native, Pacific Islander, Latinx communities, students experiencing disabilities, and students navigating poverty. Programs will include support for high school students facing academic credit loss, summer enrichment programs for students in grades K through 8, and wraparound childcare for students in grades K through 5. However, we once again find ourselves facing the possibility of an insufficient state school fund to be allocated from the legislature. K-12 education received $9.0 billion for the 2019-21 biennium, and the current co-chair's budget framework calls for an allocation of $9.1 billion for the 2021-23 biennium. An increase of $100 million statewide effectively amounts to reductions, as that doesn't even cover normal year-to-year inflationary cost. We estimate needing a statewide allocation of $9.6 billion to maintain a current service level from the 2019-20 school year, which was our last normal school year. An allocation at the $9.1 billion level would mean a shortfall in Hillsboro School District of approximately $7.5 million over the biennium. Because we have aligned our systems with the identified priority areas of SIA, we would likely be placed in a situation where we would need to spend a majority of SIA funds to backfill state school fund losses. We will continue advocating for a higher state school fund allocation so we can follow through on the spirit of SIA principles and make additional investments in the priority areas, rather than just maintaining what we are currently doing. Something we are putting in place to ensure strategic oversight of the funds available from each source is an acceleration focus group. This group of cross-functional administrators will create and monitor spending plans for the temporary federal aid, or ESSER funds, ODE summer grants, student investment account, and high school success Measure 98 funds, keeping in mind potential impacts from the ultimate state school fund allocation. Though we do not yet know exactly what the 2021-22 school year will look like, especially when school begins in September, we do intend to create a third instructional delivery option that will allow students in grades K-8 to continue in the comprehensive distance learning model if they so choose. Students in grades K-12 can also elect to participate in Hillsboro Online Academy if they do not wish to return in person. The new distance learning model will be feeder-based rather than school-based and will necessitate a targeted allocation of staff members. We intend to continue advocating at the state level for additional funding for K-12 through the state school fund. It is a delicate exercise, as we certainly do not want to appear ungrateful for the historic investment in education that was realized through the SSA-SIA. However, for that to be truly an investment, it needs to be in addition to, not a substitute for, a stable base of funding. I encourage all Hillsboro School District patrons to stay informed and involved in the legislative process and to join us in keeping our elected officials focused on the needs of our students. Our future depends on their success, and after more than a year of incredible challenges, they need us now more than ever. Respectfully, Mike Scott.
Thank you, Superintendent Mike Scott. We will now go to the review budget outlook and proposal with Michelle Morrison.
Thank you. If we could go ahead and advance the slide. Again, a lot of this information is going to look familiar to our budget committee members as we've been giving updates throughout the year and preparing for this evening. Our budget outlook for the current service level, as Mike indicated, our pre-COVID current service level requirement is 9.6 billion, and we are looking at less than that for the governor's recommended budget and the co-chair's budget framework, which hasn't really, they haven't settled on a number yet. We're waiting for that, but that's what we know today, and it's inadequate. The other piece that is going to influence our state school fund would be our student enrollment and student weighting trends. So as our enrollment drops, our funding drops as we are funded on a per student basis. Please advance.
Hey, Michelle, can I just chime in there for 1 second?
Sure.
One of the things I did want to share with you is that, it's pretty clear that 9.1 is not acceptable and does not allow us to meet the current service level that we currently have. And had the opportunity to meet with the governor yesterday, and there were a group of us that were advocating for the state school fund to be at the $9.6 billion level. She pledged that she would take that back and speak with her folks and have that conversation. But what we wanted to share with her is for us to really realize the goals of those SIA funds. It can't be used to have to just maintain programs that are necessary for kids that are currently in place. While maintaining does align with some of the goals that are for the SIA funds, it doesn't allow us to do more of that visionary work because we need to maintain the programs that are already necessary for our students. So just so you know, we had the opportunity to share that message directly with the governor. We continue to be in touch with legislators, and they're very aware of what current service level is for the Hillsboro School District as well. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you highlighting that. And as you mentioned, we had to use a portion, almost all of the Student Investment Act account allocation that we received this year was used to provide eligible services that had to be reduced from the general fund last year because of inadequate funding. So thanks for bringing that back to the front. Although the state school fund is the majority of our operating fund budget, here are some additional revenue assumptions that I wanted to share with the group, and they may look, again, familiar to you. Our local property taxes, we're assuming that they're going to grow 4% annually. That's a rough average for the last 5 years, and they tend to run around a 95% collection rate. Our indirect rate charged to major grants is going to be at 4% in the budget. Our state and local revenues remain stable. So this is assuming that we're not going to have any type of an economic decline from the latest forecast for the state, economic forecast. We're assuming that Measure 98 and the High School Success Act will be fully funded. We're assuming the Student Investment Act will be fully funded. And all other sources, major grants that we've had in the past, are going to be based on historical experience and even the actual allocations if we have those in communications from the state and our other grantors. So those are some additional revenue assumptions. Hugo, please advance. On the expenditure side, these have been shared before as well. We will have some staffing adjustments as we continue to shift our service model to meet the needs of our students. And so we've got some contingencies in there planned for that. We have our services have a 7% annual increase in utilities, fuel subs, service agreements, and those are adjusted based on our last full year of actual cost. So that would take us all the way back to 2018-19 as a base year. And just a note on that 7%, it also accounts for additional improvements that we've made and square footage we've added under the bond. Some of those operating costs associated with the equipment and additional space are included in there. We have our supply budget is about a 4% annual increase, again, using 2018-19 as a base year. And then our pandemic recovery related expenses. So the things that we are experiencing but for COVID is pretty much the test that we apply to it. We're assuming that those will be funded by the federal relief funds. That includes FEMA reimbursements and the ESSER funds that we're going to be talking about. Please advance. So at our prior budget updates so far this year, there was a discussion about the general fund balanced. And I just wanted to bring that back here so that we can recognize that, yes, it was brought up as a discussion item, but also it was strategically reduced from the general fund target of 5% to 4%, and then again to 4.5%, and then to 4%. To mitigate budget shortfalls. So those were, it was a tool that was used to avoid staffing reductions. A low fund balance increases cash flow risks. That is a challenge for us, and we have managed within that. And our cost for borrowing funds, including bond sales, will go up in the out years if our ratings change because of a low fund balance. And we recently did have a ratings change. If the current year, the 2021 year fund balance exceeds the target that we set in the current year budget, those funds may be appropriated for use within the 21-22 school year, but we really won't be able to bring that information forward until probably October. So I just wanted to make that as a note here as well. Is there any discussion about the fund balance, or should we wait until we get to the committee discussion? Xian, do you have a preference? Just keep going.
Just going is fine.
Okay, thank you. Please advance. So this is, again, a very familiar picture for you guys of our long-range forecast, and it reflects our expenditures based on current service level spending. And the blue line is, of course, our revenue, what we're expecting at the 9.1 level. And you can see the gap and how it has some very long-reaching implications for our students. Please advance. Here are some potential solutions for chronic underfunding, and Mike did touch base on this. We could potentially use some high school success dollars at the secondary level to mitigate class size or provide additional student supports. The student investment account could be used for classroom teachers, counselors, and student supports. And through our community feedback sessions on that, the priorities were identified, and I have some slides in here to touch on that as well. We could reduce or repurpose current general fund dollars, but that's a push-pull because it means stopping something to provide funding for something else within the general fund. And then our fund balance, like I mentioned on the last slide, if there's a surplus available, that could be targeted for additional appropriation if the board sees fit in October. Please advance. And this is the gold star slide of the year for me. I'm very proud of it. I've shared it with you guys before. Just a recap that this indicates our at different funding levels of the state school fund. The amount in blue would be the student investment account dollars that we would have available for investment. So currently at the governor's recommended budget and co-chair's framework budget of 9.1 billion, we will have a shortfall in 21-22 of just over $6.5 million for current service level costs, leaving 901,642 for additional support for students that services or staffing that aligns with the student investment account priorities. As we move to the right, you can see at the very end, if we receive 9.6 billion in our fully funded in our operating budget, then we would have almost $7.5 million additional support for students for, again, those eligible expense areas. We do anticipate, we don't anticipate, I think Mike can affirm that we're hearing 9.3 billion for the state school fund at the biennium is the potential landing place for the legislature, and that's why we continue to advocate and encourage folks to advocate on behalf of our students. Please advance. We have a couple slides here just to remind us of the input we received from the community about the Student Investment Act and those areas. We have well-rounded education, student health and safety, which was by far the winner in our 4th iteration of the work that we did. We have some class size reduction in there and a little bit of additional instructional time. Please advance. This slide has each of those areas broken out in a narrative. If you would like to know more about that, again, we have shared this multiple times. I just wanted to remind you guys of the things that came forward during that process. Please advance. All right, so federal CARES funding is getting to be quite a big topic for us in HSD. And for you as our budget committee members, these are the things that we'd like to communicate about those funds. They are temporary in nature. They will expire. They are focused on very specific things: basic needs, academic, social, and emotional gains. And strategically, we want those to use them for the longest period possible and have the highest impact for students. We have an accelerated learning approach for students that are assessed below grade level and have some strategies underneath there that we would like to move forward. There's also a large technology component. We've become very reliant on technology in a way that we wished for, but hadn't planned for, and COVID moved us that way, and it's going to need some sustaining over time as well. Mike, was there anything you wanted to add here about the federal CARES funding?
No, I would just say this, that I think you hear a lot about there's federal money available and there's COVID relief dollars available. And so really the entire goal of this team that's getting together is to put together a spending plan for those dollars that are going to allow us to accelerate the learning of our students, as well as to make sure that we're re-engaging in a meaningful way and recapturing students. So we have a team of folks that are working on that right now. And in approximately a month, we'll be through our process and be able to share more deeply and comprehensively what exactly those funds will be targeted for. We are dividing that work into a number of 4 different areas, while at the same time thinking about it in terms of what can be accomplished this summer, what can be in the very near future, as well as what can be accomplished over the next couple of years as these dollars are available to us. So we have a great opportunity here to re-engage students, to accelerate their learning, make sure that we're meeting their needs, as well as meeting those expenses that have exceeded what we originally thought before we were in COVID. So we're a month away from being able to share more detailed with you, but do know that all of those dollars that are captured here, the $38 million, and we mentioned before that 13 million needs to be spent by September 2022, and the remaining 25 million by September 2023. And when it comes to staffing and extending school days and enriching opportunities, that will do significant things for our students. So we're excited about this opportunity and look forward to sharing more information with you. Travis or Dale, anything you would add to that?
No, you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
I did have a question, but I don't know if we're just waiting until the end now for this too.
We only have a couple slides left, if that helps. Okay, thank you, Erica. One more note about the federal CARES funding is that they are, of course, coming to us from the federal level, but they are also filtering through the Oregon Department of Education. And it will also have their lens on it in terms of what they would like to see impact happen. And that will come to us in the form of a grant application. These funds are also on a reimbursement basis. So we have to have a spending plan. We spend that plan, then we get a reimbursement for those dollars. So it's not exactly raining money, but it's very welcome support. Please advance. Here are some other budget considerations that I wanted to share with you guys as well. We have some variables that we keep an eye on, including the extended federal program outlook. So we rely quite heavily on nutrition services program, our Title I, our IDEA funds. We keep an eye on those, and also if additional dollars or if those are being reduced, something that we watch very closely. Economic stability, we keep our eyes on that as well, and adjust as needed as we see our revenues growing or shrinking. We make adjustments as needed throughout the year. Student enrollment is a big concern for us. We're assuming that we're going to go back to pre-COVID student enrollment levels, that we're working really hard to get those students back. But if that is not the case, then we'll have to address that as it comes up. And then also we're moving into a bargaining period with both of our licensed and our classified union partners. And so that also has some budget implications as well. We have some key dates coming up. We have the state of Oregon economic forecast, and that's something that I would usually write a budget update on and put on our budget website, or Beth also can provide that. Sometime in June, we're hoping we're going to actually have an appropriation level set for K-12, and that will is typically the first domino in all of the other impacts of funds that we have. And then June 22nd is going to be our budget hearing and adoption, and then we'll be able to implement the budget effective July 1st. So with that, please advance. On the last bit before we go into discussion time, I just again wanted to remind folks that the proposed budget document looks different this year. We are moving towards our best practices in presentation of budget materials, and we've made quite a few improvements and additions to the budget document. It's reorganized into 4 major sections, beginning with an executive summary that has the detail following it in other sections. Most of the information in the budget document looks very, very familiar, but Jeff Jones and I are available to answer questions if there are any about the additional information that's provided there. Hopefully you'll enjoy the enhanced graphics. I know we tried to work some additional tables in there because it makes our information more digestible, but there's also a lot of really cute student pictures. We're trying to get warmer and fuzzier as we go. So thank you for that. Please advance. And now I think I'm going to hand it back to Shin to move us into discussion.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm all about the warm and fuzzy. So now we'll open it up for committee discussion.
I just had a question about the federal funding, and I understand that you mentioned we have to go through an application process, but I'm wondering if there can also be an opportunity to, just like when we did with SSA, seeking input and feedback from particularly our students to hear back what kind of things they're needing right now, especially supplemental or like summer programs, just to see what the needs are around social emotional learning. And I know that our goal is to amp up our catching up on credits or anything that our students need regarding to that. But I'm also wondering if there's other types of programs or needs our students might be requiring right now, and that those can be covered by that.
Sheehan, I think I can start the answer to that for our team.
Yes, sounds good.
We're going to weave some feedback on the SIA that, like you mentioned, Erica, the student investment account dollars are continuous improvement process, and then these ESSER dollars together as topics to bring to our PACs and our student groups. So we continue to engage with our Black Village Parent Advisory Committee, our Native American PAC, our Latinx PAC, for example, around the topics of what are the needs in the community and what input can you give us. Mike and Olga and I met last week with our family liaisons and talked about the ideas that are on the table now, and then what additional ideas that they're hearing from families and students. And then we're looking at student data. Also, like you mentioned, what are credits and all that, but then also what are the basic needs that students have? And we're trying to cross-reference those with what's allowable under the grant funds or the SIA funds, and basically trying to braid money together in order to support the needs of students from those basic needs up through the social and academic. So our process is going to go through the spring, which will lead us to some of the short-term answers to what do we need to provide during the summer. And then it'll also inform our long-term revision of our strategic plan and things like that that could last 5 years into the future.
And my follow-up, that if we have any idea how long we would have that federal funding for recovery, is it just a one-time thing, or is there an outlook of having this support, financial support?
I'm waiting for Michelle. I happen to know, I think that the second part of the ESSER dollars expires in 2024. And for the foreseeable future, we would have the student investment account, since that's a statutory thing. Given the revenue forecast, it could come and go, it could ebb and flow, but that's a more sustainable string of funding, as is the High School Success Act.
Thank you, Travis. Yeah, it's actually the third round of ESSER funds that may be available through 2024. ODE hasn't provided a lot of guidance, and they've said both dates, September 2023 and September 2024. So I think they're still processing those details, and will be able to let us know that as well.
Thank you, Travis and Michelle. We'll go with Christine and then Mark.
All right, thanks very much. I just had actually 2 comments and a question. First of all, I love the budget document. I really do. The graphs are so much more helpful than the previous year. So thumbs up on that, guys. So really liked it. So especially those best practices in school budgeting. I really love that. So I know, totally nerdy of me, but good job. Also wanted to tell you that I really appreciated the information about the reserves. I know that's something that I had questions about last time, and I was encouraged to see that that the proposed budget for 21-22 has a little more money in the fund balance. So I was happy to see that as well. I guess my question is actually regarding the bargaining. So you'd mentioned that we have two partner unions, I guess it is, that we're going to be doing bargaining in for this next year. So when is that going to be starting? And does that apply to this budget we're talking about, or will it start applying to the next budget?
Thank you for that question, Christine. We are at the end of our 3-year agreement with both our licensed and classified staff. So next year is the year that the new agreement will be in place, although we are not likely to have that at the very beginning of the year. So we'll have to navigate that situation as we've done in the past.
Okay, and as a follow-up to that, do we anticipate any, and I know this is very subject to change in the legislature, but do we anticipate any major PERS changes coming up?
Not this year. I think I've been monitoring the PERS related bills, and they are technical fixes to the last major reform that went through. So we don't see any major PERS bills. No. Okay,
great, thank you.
So now we'll go with Mark and then Kevin.
Thank you for the tremendous presentation, and a few things. Just first want to let you know that your gold star slide has been shared with more than one legislator at this point. So it is out there and making the rounds. maybe even some outside of our district. So to the fund balance and the rating on bonds, you mentioned that we were lowered. How much of that would you think is actually related to our fund balance, and how much is related to sort of just everything sort of being lowered? I think we generated quite a bit of bond premium in our last offering, and we were at the same fund balance as we are now. So you mentioned that our credit rating was lowered, but I sort of have a recollection that I think a lot of things were just lowered because the standard changed. So how much do you think that our fund balance of 4% is related to that change?
So it was communicated to us by Moody's, the rating agency, that it was fund balance and student enrollment. So we have a lack of student enrollment growth right now. And as a school district in Oregon, we weren't alone in this to receive a downgraded rating. That being said, the impact to the actual costs to a bond sale it's really hard to determine whether or not there's going to be an impact and how much it's going to be, especially since we're targeting, it's quite a few years from now, and we would get re-rated at that time. So the Moodys Standard for fund balance, they like to see you at 15%, and I don't think that's a reality for us in Hillsboro. So just a note on that. I hope that answered your question, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. And then on the targeted federal COVID relief funding, 38 million with a couple of different expirations on when we have to use them. My question would be, I appreciate how much optimism we're talking with, which means there's probably some left, but like what percentage of that or how much of that is already sunk costs, extra Chromebooks, hotspots, communication packages, extra cleaning? We know we've already experienced quite a bit of COVID expense this previous year. And so how much of that 38 million do we have still left to spend on accelerated learning and targeted improvements, and how much is already spent?
So we haven't tapped any of those federal funds for this year. So it's all forward looking as of next year. However, we're in the process of costing out what the service model is going to look like. So I think that would be included in the presentation that Mike was talking about a month from now, when we have more of those plan details figured out. It's a given that the additional operational cost just to have school is going to kind of come off the top, right? And then we will be adding for accelerated opportunities for students after that. So we have a great plan to develop a plan, but we don't have those details yet to share with you, Mark.
So as we use bond premium dollars to equip every student, do our one-to-one technology, we were able to cover that entire cost out of the bond premium. We didn't have to use any of the, is that what you're saying? Things like that.
Yeah, we used some bond premium, and we used some CARES money that came through Washington County to us for that. So the bond didn't have to bear the complete expense. And as we rewind back to a year ago and our resolution to move forward with the language arts adoption and some technology purchases, we allowed ourselves some flexibility, not knowing exactly what funding sources were going to be available to us. So I think that we've been very deliberately strategic about what we are spending on what items, where those funds are coming from.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we know the challenges of a 4% ending fund balance. You're dancing on a pin very well, so keep up the great work. Thanks.
Thank you. And Kevin, I see you put your hand down. Did you get your question answered?
I did. Mark asked it and Michelle answered it, so thank you very much.
Okay, excellent. Well, seeing that I don't see any other hands, we will now move into our public input time. I'm going to read the audience participation statement. So public participation in board meetings is governed by policy BDDH. Patrons may provide input regarding the district's budget during the public input time listed on the agenda. Speakers shall be limited up to 3 minutes at the board's discretion. Visitors who wish to speak before the board must complete an intent to speak card available on the top of the HSD homepage and submit it via the Google form to the executive assistant to the board of directors, Rose Ramon. Commenters may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs, but in public sessions, the board will not hear comments regarding any individual district staff member or group of employees. The board chair will direct the visitor to the procedures in board policy KL-public complaints for board consideration of a legitimate complaint involving a staff member and will connect the visitor with an administrator as appropriate. The board thanks all patrons for their presence and appreciates the input of community members. Did we have any public input?
Yes, Soon. I have a statement to be read that was submitted by the Hillsboro Education Association.
Okay, thank you, Beth.
To the Hillsboro School District Budget Committee, Hillsboro Education Association appreciates the opportunity to comment on the budget process for 2020-21. With our mission for excellence in public education, we know that students succeed with teachers and educators who are highly invested. Students succeed with lower class sizes and with needed mental health supports. They need arts, music, physical education, as well as career and technical education. Students also thrive in safe environments and when they feel accepted, included, and understood. HEA can help with the hiring and retaining of talented and diverse staff by bargaining for competitive salaries and benefits. When HEA negotiates ideal working conditions, they are also helping to create ideal learning conditions. HEA's advocacy for equity and inclusion for all members and students can be linked to our partnerships in professional development and labor management. HEA will continue to work with this committee and with the Hillsboro School District's Chief Financial Officer, Michelle Morrison, to ensure that we are part of the process to grow excellent public education in Hillsboro. Respectfully submitted, Jill Golay, HEA President.
Thank you, Beth. Now we will move into additional committee discussion if there is any. Michelle?
Thank you, Sheehan. I do have a message from Kim Strelchin, who sent an email that she would not be present tonight, but she asked me to share and note her thoughts on the proposed budget. I'm pleased, I'm going to channel her for a second. I'm pleased that even with the current conditions, we're planning for a class size reduction in the upper grades. I believe we all have a responsibility to continue to advocate at the state level to secure a 9.6 budget. It's critical that the student investment account funds can actually provide the investments they were designed to create rather than backfilling budget shortfalls. It's also important for the committee and our community members to remember that decades-long inadequate and unstable funding of education in our state are directly related to Measure 5 and its subsequent measures that have wreaked havoc on our system. It took years to get the Student Success Act and actually invest in education and support systems for the children of Oregon. We must keep making these important, targeted investments so they are impactful for today's students and tomorrow's workforce. And then she added later, one more thought. I'm in support of holding a 4% reserve. I do not want to increase reserve until we know for sure that state funding is at 9.6 and doesn't require district cuts. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Opening it up for additional committee discussion.
I'm trying to raise my hand, but I couldn't do it in time. So I did want to just communicate an opportunity also for our fellow budget members that the Ways and Means Committee actually met recently, and some of our elected official school board members were not allowed to testify, which was really shocking at the time. We weren't told ahead of time. So as you know, all of our school board electeds in Oregon are just normal community members, and they take time out of their day also to advocate on behalf of their districts. And they were told that this was an opportunity really for regular, more constituents to have an opportunity to speak to legislators about advocating for budgets. So this is also an opportunity, and I call on for help, since as an elected official, we were kind of pushed out and not able to testify and say how that 9.1 would be a deficit to our budget and maintaining our current service level. That if you have an opportunity to testify or to provide testimony at that legislative level, that's another opportunity to advocate for our students, since we're not able to be in that space. I just wanted to communicate that there's an opportunity for our budget committee members to do that.
Thank you, Erica, for bringing that to our attention. I see Christine and then Mark.
So Erica, I'm kind of curious, do you happen to know who made that decision? Was it the co-chairs who made that decision? Because that's, okay, I gotta say, as a community member, that's really irritating because I help elect the board as a community member. And if my representatives aren't allowed to be there, then that's, I will just say, and I know this is a public meeting, that's pretty ridiculous. So.
That's how we felt. We sent
okay, because that doesn't make any sense to me. But sorry, little outrage there.
Thank you, Christine. Mark?
I would not like to be on the record as a legislative apologist, but I can say that what I think may have happened is that the very first session was flooded by elected officials, city council, school board, things like that, who know the process, know the drill, and were able to get in. And there were 100 or so people that weren't able to testify. So the decision was made, I think, you'd have to check with, the people who are the chairs of the Ways and Means Committee, which is easily available on the Oregon legislature site. But I think the idea was that school board members, city council members, Washington County county commissioners have a and budget committee members as well, have pretty easy access to our legislators. And I can tell you that any school board member or budget committee member reaching out to a legislator directly to their office via email asking for a one-on-one meeting or a few budget members together in a meeting would very likely be able to get that meeting. So while you may not have been able to, we may not have been able to have our voices heard in the public forum, we would very easily be able to advocate. And frankly, anybody out there, I don't know a legislator that wouldn't take a one-on-one meeting or a one-on-a-few meeting with just constituents. So as someone who's pretty passionate about, I'm gonna say CSL is what the legislature wants to call it. The budget, I'm gonna call it ASL for us. Our actual service level differs from what the legislature would call current service level. Our actual service level, our ASL, is at 9.6, and we have a gap between what they call CSL. And I think as someone who's pretty passionate about that, I encourage anyone listening to call up your office, your legislative representatives or senators, and set up a meeting, because they will take that meeting and you'll be able to advocate with the material Michelle's provided.
Yeah, and I think the bigger rub was that it wasn't communicated to people beforehand. And so people were prepared and had statements, and it was just announced at the beginning of the meeting. So, but again, it's a great opportunity for, as many of you know, we don't have a lobbyist for HSD. So a lot of the advocacy that we do at the state level is by our board members, but our community members that are passionate about this and aware of what's happening. So just another opportunity for us to keep advocating in that space.
Martin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that school board members statewide are unpaid volunteers. Many of those other people who were apparently blocked receive salary for their jobs. So they're paid. So I get it, but we're just folks in the community.
Thank you. Well, seeing that we are at time, I'm going to move us along to the possible action items. And are there any that we need to take right now in terms of voting or anything?
Madam Chair, are you looking for a nomination?
I am not sure.
Yes, I'm just going to pipe right in. There's an opportunity here now to approve the budget as proposed or with revisions, or since we're at time, we would need to schedule an additional meeting. And we've had May 6th as a tentative hold date. But if there aren't any changes required to the document, we would move forward towards approving it.
Madam Chair, in my 6th and final year on the Hillsboro School District Budget Committee, I move that the Hillsboro School District 1J budget for 2021-2022 in the aggregate amount of $459,024,566 in total of all funds be approved as a proposed, and that the permanent tax rate of $4.9749 per $1,000 of assessed value be assessed in support of the general fund. I further move that the tax levies totaling $39,590,776 be approved for the debt service fund for the purpose of the retirement of bonded debt owed by the district.
Second.
So it's been moved by Martin and seconded by Mark. Do we open it up for discussion again? Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will go down and do the roll call. And please state your vote. Erica?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Lisa Allen is absent. Yadira?
Aye.
Jackie?
Aye.
Mark?
Watson votes yes.
Don?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Nina Carlson is absent. Christine?
Aye.
Monica?
Aye.
Kim Strelchin is absent. And Kevin?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. So the motion passes. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your support. Just a note that there may be additional supplemental information added to the document as we present to you the approved, and we'll be sure and have a list of those. Again, it's more supplemental information and no material changes to the numbers as we move forward. Can we advance this slide? So here are the next steps as we've been talking about. It's been approved. At the June 22nd board meeting, we'll have the budget hearing, and there will be several resolutions that accompany that again, at the board level, set our levies and appropriation levels. So just wanted you to know that and see this cute picture. Please advance one more time. There it is. What it's about. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle, for you and your team's excellent work on this. Mike, I see your hand.
I just wanted to let people know, just a reminder that we will have additional information available to the board in about a month regarding the spending plan that's currently being developed. And I also just wanted to thank Michelle and Jeff for their work on this budget document. That is a beast of a document, and putting that information together takes considerable time and effort. So Jeff and Michelle, thank you. Much appreciated.
Yes, thank you all. And I will adjourn our budget committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will take now back the meeting to our regular work session. Budget committee members, you are welcome to stay on and listen a little bit more if you want a couple updates. Otherwise, you're free to go. Our first item on our work session is a discussion for recommendations for student representatives to the Board of Directors for the school year 21-22. And I have Jackie and Mark on here.
Hi, everybody. Director Spross and I had the opportunity to interview 7 amazing candidates for school board over the course of one afternoon. 4 from Glencoe, 2 from Miller, and 1 from Hill High. So we would be honored to serve with any of them, I can tell you. So, and many of them throughout the conversation, which just to reiterate for y'all, we asked the same questions that we have always asked. So it's pretty standardized process. We'd be honored to serve with anyone, and I believe there are several projects where we'll be following up, bringing for candidates who might not have been selected. They're still likely to be involved in the upcoming academic year because they have projects and suggestions that were just amazing and we want to bring forward. And I think, Travis, you can look forward to another student hoping to participate on the curriculum advisory committee. So yes, I'm disappointed that we couldn't add more, but you know, I think the 3 is pretty manageable, and I like how we rotate the 3 and 3. So before I get to the names, I would give Director Spross an opportunity to share any thoughts that she might have.
Yeah, we did. We would be honored to serve with any of them. Maya, do you have any? I know you met with the candidates. Just curious what your feedback is and thoughts you had.
Yeah, I just got to talk with everyone before their meeting with you guys, or before they talked to you, and they all just seemed super enthusiastic and driven and motivated, and I think any of them would be a great choice.
Yeah, I think that from the feedback we got from the students that we interviewed, that was a really great icebreaker and kind of eased their nerves a little bit. It's kind of nerve-wracking, I'm sure, to, you know.
Definitely. Yeah, I remember that helping me a lot because I got to do that with the previous board members as well.
That's something I think that we will continue to do. So yeah, I'm very impressed with the 3 that we've chosen. It was difficult to choose. It was. And Mark's right. There's one gal that had a suggestion that we just kind of went, oh, we want that. There were a couple of them, so we're gonna follow up with them on that, definitely.
So yes, the keeping the current student school board representatives involved in the process. I just commend all the applicants on their bravery. I think, you know, I can't imagine a 16 or 17-year-old me would have loved the idea of going in front of a bunch of adults. I don't know that I would have had that kind of courage. So, you know,
very brave.
Yeah. So Maya, thank you very much for being there to sort of help take the edge off a little bit for him. I think it really made a difference. So we'll keep that going for sure. So with that, I would like to suggest that the board of directors select for the upcoming academic year, Seth Tronco from Glencoe High School, Kaylee Vasquez Burgos from Hillsboro High School, and Jacqueline Perez Sanchez from the Miller Education Center.
Yes.
Thank you. And board members, you will have an opportunity in our regular session for one of you to make that nomination and that motion.
Is there any discussion or anything we need to do, or is this just like a report that we present to you guys, or?
Yeah, just a report.
Can't remember how it works. Okay.
Yeah, I just
want to say thank you so much for allowing Mark and I to do it, because interviewing the students it's just refreshing. It's the reason that we're all here is for the students and to include them on the board. I'm so proud that we do that. And I wish every public board or council had young people represented. I think their voice is not heard.
Is Ilham here? I didn't see her at the outset. Is she?
No, she's out today. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that it has been brought before a legislative office to investigate what it would take to require school boards in Oregon to have student representation. So there is discussion at the state level regarding that kind of thing.
I just want to say thank you, Mark and Jackie, for your work on doing the selection process. And I'm excited for our next year. And also thank you for our student reps that participated in that on a little bit of onboarding. And I know that you will do a little bit more as we select the new candidates.
And Rose too, just throwing that out there. She was in
Oh,
there
yeah.
and interviewed with
so
us
much,
and
Rose. Oh,
kept us on track. And
Of course, her logistical magic working.
yes.
All right, thank you, board members. Our next item on the agenda is an update on our return to in-person learning. And I would say, like, return to in-person, maybe we need to change that word because we're already back in. So maybe that's something we update on our agenda. And I have that with Travis, right?
Actually going to kick us off here.
Okay.
So if you want to go ahead and advance one and one more. So wanted to talk a little bit about next fall. And we did have I mentioned the conversation that we were able to have with the governor. And one of the things that we know is necessary and it's going to happen is that the guidelines will once again be adjusted before fall 2021. And one of the things that we did is we took the opportunity to start some conversation around what our hopes for are around the updated guidance. And there will be official avenues for various school districts across the state to begin to engage in that discussion. But since we had the opportunity, we used it to talk about a few things with her that have made this such a challenge. One of those being the social distancing, the change from 6 feet to 3 feet. We fully understand that 3 feet is what the guidance currently calls for. And many of us, though, like most districts in the metro area, all large districts already had in their MOU the 6 foot social distancing piece. And so we're seeking clarity and consistency on that so we can plan moving forward. Again, one thing to keep in mind is that the memorandum of understanding that we have with the association, that does expire at the end of this school year, but clarity and consistency from the state would be very helpful on that. Transportation is a barrier for us as well, and that is a hurdle that we found it very difficult to get over. As there's several recommendations regarding the number of kids that can be on a bus, and with what we've learned over the last several months about airflow and wearing masks, our hope is that there will be some loosening of that guidance around to be more around ventilation within the bus as well as the wearing of face mask. Lunch and serving meals continues to be a struggle. Currently, there's some distancing requirement there that make it difficult to get a number of students in an efficient manner. And then what we've learned, of course, about cleaning protocols and those types of things, and how that's evolved over the last several months, I think is something that we're looking for in the guidance as well. So there will be opportunities for additional input on that. If you have anything that you feel would be important for us to communicate during those discussions, I would love to hear that from you, and I'd be happy to take it forward. Regarding next fall, though, what we're looking at is that we would have a school year where we'd bring all students back 5 full days, every kid every day. And of course, this has to fall within the guidance that it comes out, and the guidelines are going to have to be adjusted in order for that to fully occur. But that's what we're planning on, because we do believe there will be enough adjustments to make that happen. We mentioned earlier that there will be 3 different models that students can participate in. One of those being just attending full-time your neighborhood school. The other one being Hillsboro Online Academy, and that's now available K-12. And then, of course, distance learning. We know that we've had some students that have thrived in distance learning, and we've heard from a number of families that this will be their preference for the foreseeable future. So making that option available is something that we believe will accommodate the needs of our families and be able to keep students in the district pursuing one of our options. So that is the plan that we're looking at for next fall. And we look forward to being able to communicate a little bit more on the distance learning piece as we learn more about the guidance that's going to be in place. We know that the working plan as of now is that we will have discrete teachers assigned to distance learning and those students to be in a cohort by grade level in a feeder area as opposed to individual schools. We don't believe we'll have enough students choosing that model to have it school by school, but we believe that feeders will be the best delivery option there. All right, let me turn it over. I think Travis has the next couple slides.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Erica, I saw you unmute. Did you want to comment?
I just had a question, Mike, on the next fall update, because I know that we send out also surveys for families to like ask, what has worked, what hasn't worked based on like CDL. And I know right now it says just K through 8. So I'm also wondering what that feedback was from our high schoolers particularly, and that kind of informed this so far, and if there's opportunities for us to, I know that as we get closer to revise that.
Dale, do you want to share the information that you were sharing today regarding the conversations that you've had?
Sure. Yeah, we meet tomorrow with our high school leaders to kind of debrief all that data. And one of the pieces of data that we need to tease out and kind of dig into is there were some students who felt like they weren't comfortable coming back in brick and mortar, students and families of students, but they also weren't exactly sure if they wanted HOA. They sort of liked the idea of CDL. Some students have really thrived in that environment, and some of the comments were around the opportunity to be flexible, to interact with their teachers, which isn't something historically that HOA has offered in the same way. And so we are actually having conversations. We talked with the Big Six assistant soups last week and sort of learned about what they do in their models. And we're having conversations about that tomorrow. We want to offer programming that helps meet the needs of our students. High school gets really tricky when you start talking about being live with them. I think we can probably maybe pull off the core, our science, social studies, math, language arts. It gets a lot more challenging when you start talking about electives. And so it's just a conversation that we need to dive into. We had about 10% of our families that were interested in that. So we also need to solicit more information from our students directly, because that's not enough for us to have something in every school. But then it begs the question, am I interested in CDL because I want to be a Century Jaguar connected to my Century Jaguar teachers? Or do I just like the CDL model and I would be okay with like a South or a North or a more centralized CDL structure? So we're using the information to dive in tomorrow, and it will bring more questions, and then we'll reach back out to our kids so that we can learn more about what they feel they need in order to be successful.
Thank you, Dale. I definitely do just want to advocate and push for us to really think outside of the box of how can we, deliver for high school students something that works. I think especially they have a really good sense of their needs and are able to vocalize that and express that to us in a way that we can build the correct environment for them that meets the structure that they need. And I just heard from so many parents, I keep hearing how nice it is for their kids to wake up a little later and have that late start, especially at that high school level. And so I'm just wondering, how can we do something different and do something that meets those needs? And whether it's like, do we create a task force to look at this and have that input from students? And just like we were doing with like our middle school, looking at that redesign. So I just definitely want to make sure that I highlight and push for creative, out of the box and innovative solutions for our school district.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. We did ask questions specifically about zero period before school and then after our traditional day to get information from kids, families, and staff to see who were interested. We've piloted some evening classes. And I think when we start talking about the Pathway Center and just opening up opportunities, it really does lend itself to great creative conversations. The challenge will be the timeline, what we need to do in a short timeline versus what we might be able to plan for in a longer timeline. But I can tell you everybody's really excited about the successes that they've seen with the comprehensive distance learning model, with the hybrid instruction. And so I think we're in a good place to have those important discussions about how to think out of the box.
Erica, is now the appropriate time to look at hands? Jackie and Martin both have hands up.
I think if this is just the next fall, yeah, if you have comments on that, let's address them now. Let's go with, and I'm so used to the other format now, I'm remembering I have to open this one little window. So I'm just gonna go with Martin first and then Jackie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Dale, I was thinking similar thoughts about, access in the after hours and on the weekend to help. I know just personally, I wrote all my term papers after midnight. I was a busboy in high school, and I'd come home and, have a Coke and wipe out a box of Chex cereal and write all my papers. Watch Johnny Carson. And that didn't change in college either. But I also heard one of the urban schools in Portland really rocked the world in terms of grad rates by doing something similar. They really opened up access to teachers in a very after schools hour way. So anyway, I just would suggest that in line with Erica's thinking outside the box.
And my comment is the same, really. It's just meeting kids where they are and how they show up and making sure that we have opportunities that meet the needs that they have. Sorry, my microphone was up. So yes, seconding what Erica said, options and opportunities, because a lot of our students do have jobs. So it might be a good opportunity.
Yes, thank you guys for all those comments and the encouragement. Like Erica had said, we did have a high school committee that was meeting about 1.5 years ago that was looking at different scheduling options. And I think if nothing, this pandemic has allowed us to try out a new model of instruction. And I think as we continue to have those conversations with our teachers, administrators, and our partners with HEA, I think we can really think of some great out of the box ideas for sure.
Thanks, Dale. All right, Travis, back to you.
Thanks, everybody. I think all of our values are right in the same spot, so I appreciate the conversation. The next slide is the scary trend upward in COVID cases in Washington County. And I saw some email exchanges, and I hope to answer folks' questions here, but happy to answer more. We're at 193 per 100,000 in Washington County. And you probably read in the paper this morning, and maybe there's an update that I missed this afternoon, that Governor Brown is putting 15 counties back into extreme risk area, not Washington County. We're a few points away, I guess, from the metric that would trigger that. I know that designation is a little more complicated than what we look at with schools. It includes things like hospitalizations. So one of the questions is, do we go right back into CDL when we go over this threshold? And the answer is no. The subsequent slide here has the table from RSSL guidance. And what I wanted to draw your attention to, Hugo, if you could advance the slide one, actually maybe twice, is that bottom blue box. And I think we've looked at this together before, but it says that schools should not reduce in-person instruction or revert to CDL based on county metrics if the school can demonstrate the ability to limit transmission in the school environment. When county trends increase to a new tier on this chart, green to yellow or yellow to red, pausing expansion of additional in-person learning and maintaining access to current in-person learning for schools that have it in place is recommended. And so we built a slide, Hugo, if you could go one more, that shows the implications of this. They're pretty simple for elementary, middle, and high schools. We'll make decisions with our partners in Washington County regarding our own schools and the transmission we see. And right now our plan, if we go over 200, would be to expand some cohorts at elementary based on capacity and targeted need, where we can bring a couple more students to school. We would continue to do that as needed for specific academic or social emotional needs. At the middle level, we would continue to make data-driven decisions for inviting students in for targeted supports, and same at high school. We would just strategically invite just the students who need those extra supports, but hold status quo with the general number of students and the cohort sizes that we see at each level. There's another line of questioning that has to do with what does it mean if we go into extreme risk in Washington County? And what I'm able to understand is that that impacts more indoor dining at restaurants and use of gyms and swimming pools and indoor gatherings. It does not directly affect schools beyond some of the gatherings that we are looking at, like graduation ceremonies and things like that. And we'll turn it over to Beth and Dale and Casey for the slides that are right after this. But I just wanted to touch on the questions that I'm getting a lot. Did I cover everything there? Okay, happy to circle back. Beth, do you want to kick us off with the, oh wait, I've got one more section here on what we're doing when we do have cases of COVID. One more slide, please, Ugo. So as you know, we've sent the board a letter and an update at least one time for notifying families that in a particular school, we had siblings in 2 different classes who tested positive for COVID. In that instance, we knew that there were only 1 case in each classroom, and we checked with the teachers and the principal at the school and worked with the school nurse to confirm that there was not close contact between the students who tested positive and their classmates or teachers or other staff at the school. That was an instance of a notification letter. And in blue, you can see that's the letter that's the heads up only. And then we also have a letter ready to go, but we have not implemented this one, where if we knew that there were 2 or more cases of COVID in a single cohort, we may choose to notify families that that cohort would go into a 14-day quarantine. And here would be next steps, boom, boom, boom. So because of our model, we know that we can move pretty quickly into CDL from an in-person cohort, and we're ready to do that with communication tools. We wanted to make those available to you and let you know that we will continue to notify you when those letters go out. And a new thing for us this week is trying to hire a new registered nurse to help expand our capacity for contact tracing and give that individual at least 3 teammates who would be hopefully multilingual and detail-oriented individuals from the community who could help us more quickly, and as cases arise, have more capacity to contact trace ourselves. The county continues to tell us that their contact tracing capacity is dwindling, and that their ability to get back to us within 6 or 12 hours to respond to new information is just not there. And so they've given us the leeway to make decisions and to notify them in cases of COVID. So we're trying to be very responsive, and our nurse team and Michelle Brady have been just incredible in their ability to communicate with school administrators and staff and families. And so much appreciation to them, and also to Beth for her communication skills and getting us prepared to be nimble. With that, wear your mask, please. And I'll pass it to Beth to talk about graduation and senior activities.
All right, actually, can we go forward one more slide? So I have prepared a draft communication for tomorrow, and it's currently being reviewed by a number of folks just to make sure that everything is correct and accurate as of today, that we're happy to share with families and students tomorrow. Basically, we are wanting to take the approach with graduation of being as permissive as we can while still following all the guidelines and recommendations and keeping everyone as safe as possible. We also want to provide some options to folks, because we have certainly heard from a number of students that they Even if it looks different than in normal years, what they really would like is that kind of more traditional graduation experience where they can be together with their classmates. And so we are planning to provide that opportunity to students who would like to do that at the Hillsboro Stadium. But we know that not everyone is going to be comfortable with that option. So we also will be providing an option for a drive-through model like we had for all graduates last year. And that would take place at Hare Field. And so schools will be surveying their students over the next 2 weeks to see which of those options they prefer, because it's very important that they choose one and not both, because as much of a logistical challenge as it was to pull off an all drive-through model last year, trying to do both models this year is going to be even more complicated. So we need folks to choose which one they want to do. And we're going to need folks to just understand that they need to be a little bit flexible, because we won't know exactly how many spectators we'll be able to welcome at the stadium until June 1st, which is when the governor will announce the county risk level designation for Washington County that will cover the period of June 4th through the 18th, which is the time frame that will encompass all of our graduation events. So based on that risk level assessment, that will tell us what percentage of the maximum capacity of Hillsboro Stadium we can occupy with spectators. So max capacity of the grandstands, which is where we typically seat people, is about 4,000. So based on that risk level, if it's low, then we can get 50% capacity, 2,000 spectators, and that of course is ideal. If we're in moderate, then that's 25%, which is about 1,000, which is still decent. That could mean 3 or 4 tickets per graduate, depending on how many people select that option. But when we start getting into high risk, that's only 15%, that's 600 folks. That's really getting a bit restrictive. And then of course, if we're in extreme risk, we feel like we probably will have to revert to an all drive-through model. So while we want to plan for both, we know that we need to be flexible and ready to adapt based on the circumstances that we see in our county at the beginning of June. So the communication tomorrow will also give some guidance for parent groups who may be wanting to plan some graduation activities. So the parameters for that are detailed in there. And just a couple other pieces of important information for high school students and families around season 4 sports and activities. And then what Travis was mentioning around the targeted expansion of on-campus days for certain students based on data and need.
So that's it for the updates. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
I see Mark has a hand raised.
More comment than question, although there might be a question there somewhere. Really, thank you, Mike and staff, for integrating so many of the questions you've received from me by email into the presentation. Very much appreciate that. Sorry to have inundated you. And, you know, the governor and Oregon Health Authority have made it pretty clear that they believe we're essentially in a race between variants of the disease and vaccinations. And, you know, vaccinations is going to win. It's just a question of when. The next few weeks, they expect it to be rough, but, you know, by early. So what I appreciate the flexibility that we have built in. So great job, everyone, for trying to draw that line in the sand for when we have to make a decision. So far, I think, you know, June 1st, I expect the situation to look much different today than it does on June 1st. And I'm very optimistic and hopeful that we'll be able to bend that curve and start to bring it back down. You know, we're sort of, the upward trend is, I don't think it's going to continue. I think the vaccinations are going to win. So thank you very much for integrating all my questions in and for maintaining as much flexibility as we can for as long as we can to provide opportunities for our seniors to have a somewhat traditional graduation experience.
Thanks, Mark. I don't see any other hands up, and I just want to make a plug for our communities as well to go get vaccinated, because this will be so exciting. I get my second dose before our graduation ceremony, so I'm super excited that I can be in person, and I want to be part of the celebration like we've done before. So I'm super hopeful that our community, our trends will go down, and also our vaccinations will go up. So thank you, Beth, Travis, and everybody else on the team that is, making all these changes and thinking about the possibility and being flexible, and then also just having that opportunity to pivot whenever we have to. I think you all have been super responsive, and I just appreciate all your hard work. So board members, we will recess right now for 10 minutes. I'm gonna recess our work session, and we'll come back here at 7, and you can stay on, I believe, here. Just mute yourselves and turn off your
Okay.
camera, so we'll be back so we can have a little break.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. I can see everybody starting to come back. Just give it about 30 seconds or so. I think we'll hit 7.
I recommend a good break activity is to chase a dog around the backyard for a little bit.
I'll take your word for it, Mark. Okay, everyone, I am calling to order our regular session of the Hillsboro School District Board meeting. And our first item on the agenda is our flag salute. If you will all join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And next on our agenda, we have our land acknowledgement, which I will read. As we gather here today, even in this virtual setting, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge that our district service area is on the occupied traditional homelands of the Atfalati indigenous people, lands we now call Washington County in the state of Oregon. We thank them and their ancestors for being the original stewards of this land. We take this opportunity to offer gratitude for the opportunity to learn, work, and be a community on this land. We also acknowledge the systemic policies of colonization that have led to genocide, relocation, and assimilation that have impacted Indigenous and Native families, both past and present, and those who will be affected in the future. According to Kalapuya tradition, people have lived here since time immemorial. Indigenous people still live here today, having persevered through US-sponsored war, displacement, genocide, and oppression. We honor the Indigenous people whose traditional and ancestral homelands we stand on. The Tualatin, Kalapuya, Katlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Molalla, Bands of the Chinook, and many other Indigenous nations on the Columbia River. We believe it is important to acknowledge the ancestors of this place and recognize that we are here because of the sacrifices forced upon them. In remembering these communities, we honor their legacy, their lives, and their ancestors. We also recognize the urban, Indigenous, Native, First Peoples communities living in the metro area, which includes over 400 tribal nations. Our next item on the agenda is recognitions and proclamations. And the first one that we have on here, let me see, is our Asian Pacific American Heritage Month with Director Kim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Hillsboro School District acknowledges that Asian Pacific Americans have lived and worked in Oregon for more than 200 years, contributing to the state's rich history, economy, and culture. The Hillsboro School District knows that Asian Pacific Americans have helped advance our community's prosperity through their contributions to all fields of education, business, the arts, economic development, science, and technology. The Hillsboro School District recognizes that Asian Pacific American history is marked by a struggle for freedom, equality, and justice, prevailing over the adversity of exclusion, persecution, incarceration, and disparities. The Hillsboro School District understands that the vibrant history and diverse cultures of Oregon's Asian Pacific Americans are here to be honored as a central part of our state's story and shared across all Oregon communities. The Hillsboro School District celebrates that the month of May is nationally recognized as a time to celebrate contributions of Asian Pacific Americans to our society and collective history. The Board of Education of the Hillsboro School District do hereby proclaim the month of May 2021 to be Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. We urge all community members to join us in recognizing the many contributions and achievements of Asian Pacific Americans to the development and prosperity of our community.
Thank you, Director Kim. Our next proclamation is our School Nurses Appreciation Week with Director Granum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Hillsboro School District acknowledges that school nurses act as a liaison to the school community, families, and healthcare providers on behalf of children's health by promoting wellness and improving health outcomes for our nation's children. The Hillsboro School District knows that students today face more complex and life-threatening health problems requiring care in school and appreciates the role that school nurses play in the lives of students. The Hillsboro School District recognizes that school nurses have served a critical role in improving public health and ensuring students' academic success for more than 100 years. The Hillsboro School District understands that school nurses are the link between health and learning and are in a position to make a positive difference for children every day. The Hillsboro School District celebrates the accomplishments of school nurses and their efforts of meeting the needs of today's students by improving the delivery of health care in our schools. The Hillsboro School District offers gratitude for school nurses who contribute to our local communities by helping students stay healthy, in school, and ready to learn. The Board of Education of the Hillsboro School District do hereby proclaim the week of 6th through 12th May 2021 to be School Nurses Appreciation Week. We urge all community members to join us in recognizing the many contributions and achievements of school nurses to the development of prosperity of our community.
Thank you, Director Granum. Our final proclamation today is Teacher Appreciation Week with Director Watson.
Thank you. And I just want to, at the outset, acknowledge that this was supposed to be read by Director Allen, who herself is a licensed teacher. And I'm sure she would have been honored to read it, and I am honored to read it in her place. The Hillsboro School District celebrates teachers who keep American democracy alive by molding future community members through guidance and education. The Hillsboro School District honors teachers who are constantly learning so they can adapt to the ever-changing needs of a diverse population in order to open students' minds to ideas, knowledge, and dreams that reach beyond the limits of their current circumstances. The Hillsboro School District thanks teachers who contribute to the growth of our city, state, and nation by providing high-quality, equitable education to all students. The Hillsboro School District recognizes that teachers spend countless hours preparing lessons, evaluating progress, counseling and coaching students, and performing community service. The Hillsboro School District salutes teachers in their work to inspire students to discover endless possibilities for success. The Board of Education of the Hillsboro School District do hereby proclaim that the week of May 3rd through the 7th, 2021 to be Teacher Appreciation Week. We urge all community members to join us in recognizing the many contributions and achievements of teachers to the development and prosperity of our community.
Thank you, Director Watson. Our next item on our agenda tonight is our approval of agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as printed.
Second.
So it has been moved by Mark and seconded by Jackie. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Rose, will you be doing roll call on this regular one? I was just wondering if we have a sheet or if I can keep tally of before I start reading off the votes.
However you'd like, I can do it.
Okay, I'll call on you, Rose, so you can just read off the list.
Erica Lopez.
Aye.
Martin Granum.
Aye.
Sheehan Kim.
Aye.
Yadira Martinez.
Aye.
Jackie Spross.
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Watson votes aye.
And Lisa Allen, that we know is absent. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Motion carries. Our next item on our agenda is audience time. Do we have any audience comments? Beth? Okay. Then I won't have to read our policy right now. We will move on to our next item, which is our consent agenda, and I need a motion.
I move that the Board of Directors approve the consent agenda as printed.
Second.
Okay, Martin. So it has been moved by Jackie and seconded by Martin. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Rose, can you do roll call, please?
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Martin Granum,
Aye.
Lisa Allen, Sheehan Kim,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Jackie Spross,
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Watson votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. The motion carries. The next item that we have is our action items. And the first item that we have, I see you on here, Adam Stewart, is to approve our boundary adjustments. So I'll hand it off to you.
Fantastic. Good evening. I'm here to ask the board's approval of the recommendation from our Quality Ridge Boundary Committee. And just as a kind of a reminder of what that looks like, we've taken the existing North Plains boundaries and split them kind of in the right down north-south, and then carved off a piece south of Highway 26. So everything that is to the north of Highway 26 and west of Pumpkin Ridge Road and Glencoe Road remain in the old or the existing North Plains Elementary School. Everything to the east of Pumpkin Ridge Road and on Pumpkin Ridge Road and south of Highway 26 will attend the new Quality Ridge Elementary School. Excuse me. We went through the presentation last week, so I don't know if we need to do that again, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, I see no questions on here. Let me see. Double check our screen. I don't see any hands raised, so I'm looking for a motion.
I move that the Board of Directors approve the North Plains Elementary / Quality Ridge boundaries as proposed by the Quality Ridge Boundary Committee.
Second.
Okay, so it has been moved by Martin and seconded by Sheehan. Is there any further discussion? I see Martin, you have your hand raised.
I'd just like to say, Madam Chair, what a great job, Adam, and the whole team, the district and the team, all the communities who have participated in this process. I have been part of some boundary adjustment processes in the past, and I think this is probably the smoothest ever. And
Yeah.
we're going to give you all the credit, Adam.
Oh, good. I don't deserve it, but it was a good committee. I think we had a good proposal, and yeah, I think it is a good solution to a problem that can be very difficult sometimes. So, thank you.
And I see Mark, you have your hand up too.
Yeah, just piggyback on what Martin said. Yes, Adam, you ran a very smooth process, and not to take away too much from your accolades, I would also like to commend the community of North Plains for really being involved and working with us in a collaborative fashion, just trying to find the answer to the problem as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And
Yep.
I appreciate how effectively they came together to really help make this a smooth process.
Couldn't agree more. Great community input, great help from the board, staff help. Yes, it was just a good process all the way around.
Thank you. I also want to commend our board member, Yadira Martinez, who served on this committee, and thank you for participating. Okay, so if there's no further discussion and we have a motion on the table, Rose, can you do roll call?
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Martin Granum,
Aye.
Lisa Allen, Sheehan Kim,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Jackie Spross,
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Watson votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. The motion carries. Our next item on here is also with Adam, and this is to award some contracts.
Yes, this is, excuse me, the phase one of our elementary school number 29, which is our first elementary school in South Hillsboro. We have gone through the selection process, and I'm here tonight to ask the board to award phase one for elementary school 29, which is the site work of at that site, to the Saunders Company for the bid amount of $2,346,115. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Okay, don't see any hands raised. I almost lost my gavel there. So I'm looking for a motion if there are no other comments.
I move that the Board of Directors award the contract for elementary school number 29 phase one site work project to the Saunders Company for the bid amount of $2,346,115.
Second.
So it has been moved by Sheehan and seconded by Yadira. Is there any further discussion? Just getting some visual thumbs up, Adam. Okay, so we're ready for a roll call, Rose.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Martin Granum,
Aye.
Lisa Allen, Sheehan Kim,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Jackie Spross,
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Watson votes yes.
Thank you.
The motion carries.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. Our next item on here is our school resource officers intergovernmental agreement approval with Mike Scott, Morgan Quimby, and Alex O. Who wants to start?
I'll go ahead and kick us off. And then if there are any difficult questions, we'll have Morgan and Alex answer those. Just as a review, we've been engaged in a 12-month process now by which we've been reviewing the relationship that we have with our school resource officers, the Hillsboro Police Department, Washington County Sheriff, and looking to make some adjustments as to what the roles and responsibilities look like, have greater accountability, spell out what the relationship details are. And so that process, we're at the end of that process. A couple of weeks ago, we presented the details and the governmental agreement that has been put together. And we're here tonight to go ahead and make a vote on that and to move forward with the city and the county in the next phase of this relationship. So we're really looking for a vote this evening. And I would like just to take an opportunity to thank Morgan, who's just done a ton of work on this. Everything from just researching governmental agreements across the nation, consulting with folks well outside of Oregon as well as within, and just the work that's been done is absolutely amazing. And Alex has been there right beside her and has been in conversations with our law enforcement partners as well. So great thanks to those two and the work that they've done on this.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. So we have a motion on the table, or we have actually, I'm looking for a motion first.
I move that the Board of Directors approve the School Resource Officer Intergovernmental Agreement between the Hillsboro School District and the City of Hillsboro.
Second.
So has been moved by Martin and seconded by Sheehan. Is there any further discussion? Okay, Yadira, I see your hand up.
Yeah, it's more of a comment, and so I had reservations about voting, one way or the other about this, but I think from the presentations that we've had and the new structures that are in place, I feel a lot better, and I feel that the county and the city are both very genuine in wanting to change that narrative of SROs in the school, which is why I'm going to vote the way I'm going to vote. And so with that said, I look forward to a continuing relationship, and then really just going to feel out, what the community says, and, see how this is going. So I feel comfortable with the changes have been made, and I feel that our move forward is going to be something that is going to be looked at and hopefully used as something that other districts can follow.
Thank you, Yadira. I don't see any other hands up, so I also just wanted to make a comment on this because I really wanted to just say how appreciative I am of my board members for being proactive. And this is a really interesting situation that we found ourselves in, that nobody was asking us to look at something, but yet we knew that this was an issue that was impacting our communities, particularly our communities of color, not just here in Hillsboro, but across the nation. And so this is really an example of what really good governance looks like, what proactive governance looked like, that we took it upon ourselves to look at our systems, look at our processes, seek input from our families, from our community members, and be intentional about which community members we wanted to listen from and elevate the voices that historically have not been at the table. And so I just want us to really think about how we can replicate the same work that we did here when it comes to other issues that we have to grapple with in the future, that we really center around our students and our families. And as Yadira said, many of you, as a person of color also, I just wanted to say that this was something that was really difficult to navigate, being impacted by some of these statistics and some of the things that we looked at and stories that we heard that I share also in my own family. I wanted to make sure that there was transparency and accountability in this agreement that we're signing, and that it wasn't just a one time that we were looking at this, but that going forward, it was something that we're going to be able to review every year. And I just want to say that I'm really thankful for Alex and Morgan, and especially for HPD that showed up constantly to our board work sessions and was there, being available to us to ask questions. And that I hope that the process that we went through, like Yadira mentioned, is something that we can also share with other districts about how to navigate these tough topics, but that need to be addressed, and that they can be done in a way that respects our community members, and that also centers around the voices that are impacted. So again, I just want to thank you, Morgan, for all your research, Alex, for shepherding us through this process, and especially from our district being our advocate out there with our partner agencies, and Mike as well for elevating our needs across with our other government organizations, whether it be the county or the city leadership, and making sure that we are able to either meet with them or send them information, and also request information from them. So thank you all. This was all really just a great example of the work that we're doing here in HSD. There's Alex. Hi, Alex. So thank you, everyone. We have a motion on the table, and I'm ready for Rose to do roll call.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Martin Granum,
Aye.
Lisa Allen, Sheehan Kim,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Do you guys hear me? Aye.
thank you. Jackie Spross,
Aye.
Mark Watson,
Watson votes aye.
thank you.
Okay, the motion carries.
And Erica, if I could just add that in May, we will be bringing back the IGA for Washington County. They're still in process. Don't anticipate any issues.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, the next item that we have is is one item that I find really exciting for our next year planning, and is to approve recommendations for student representatives to the Board of Directors for the 2021-22 school year. And we heard in our work session from Mark and Jackie around their recommendations. So I'm looking for a motion.
I move that the Board of Directors approve the interview team's recommendation that the following students be appointed on June 22nd, 2021 to serve as student representatives to the Board of Directors during the 2021-22 school year. Seth Tronco from Glencoe High School, Kaylee Vasquez Burgos from Hillsboro High School, Jacqueline Perez Sanchez from the Miller Education Center.
Second.
So it has been moved by Mark and seconded by Jackie. Is there any further discussion? Mark, I see your hand up.
Just to echo the comments we made in what would have been upstairs as opposed to downstairs in a traditional setting. We had a luxury of 7 unbelievably qualified candidates, 4 from Glencoe, 2 from the Miller Education Center, and 1 from Hill High. And we would have been honored to serve with any of them. And I look forward to hearing the voices of the students who weren't selected in other ways, perhaps on the Curriculum Advisory Committee, or maybe even bringing an idea forward for consideration by this body over the course of the next year. Just thank you so much for being brave and putting your name forward. And you all excelled very much in the interview process.
Thank you, Mark. Shan, I thought I saw your hand raised.
I just echo Mark's comments. I know that, you know, it's an incredible thing to undertake and kind of put your name out there and to apply for this process that may seem very daunting, but I just commend and appreciate the amount of interest that we got. And I just want to encourage all of the students who did apply to continue to be involved in your schools and at the district. And there are so many other ways to be involved. And we just appreciate your interest. So thank you.
Thank you, Shan. I just finally want to say also that I'm always just surprised at our students and their level of commitment and interest into learning about governing and the impact of this body and how we deliver education to our district. And I am so interested and open to figuring out even more ways to include our students and having representatives of them in other possible committees, or looking at ways, just seeing the amount of interest that they have already in just being in this space, and that there might be opportunities for other ways that they can plug in. But I am so thankful that we voted to add student reps, 4 years ago. And this has been such an amazing journey and experience, I think, for all of us, not just board members, but also our cabinet members, to have these students here in our spaces. And I can't wait for our next cohort as well, but also really happy and excited for this last cohort. And I know that they're going to have memories of having to do this through a pandemic, and no other cohort will have this particular, experience of a roller coaster. But just want to say thank you to our outgoing student representatives that have served us this year. Okay, so with that, We are ready for roll call.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Martin Granum,
Aye.
Lisa Allen, Sheehan Kim,
Aye.
Yadira Martinez,
Aye.
Jackie Spross,
Aye.
and Mark Watson.
Watson joyously votes aye.
Thank you.
All right, the motion carries. All right, everyone. The next item that we have on our agenda today is reports and discussions. And we have our, first off is our financial report.
Thank you. Erica, I needed to unmute myself there. Thanks. I enjoy just a moment to highlight what's going on in the business office to support our administrators as instructional leaders under our CEL framework. And this month, we were reflecting on systems accreditation process. And I don't want to let Travis's cat out of the bag, but it's just an amazing opportunity for us to share how we are connected as a district and the systems and structures we have in place. And so we got to be a part of that. And that was fun to show our partnership with our instructional leaders. A quick note about our incidents in workman's comp claims. Again, they're just down, comprehensive distance learning. And a reminder that we're going to have to put this period in kind of a bubble as we move forward into in-person instruction, and those activities are going to go back up again, even though people are spread out. So that's just something to be mindful of. And then for our cash flow report through the month of March, we are tracking to land on a balanced budget for the year. And at the very bottom of the cash flow, we have our quarterly interest earnings, which is something that we only report on every 3 months. So all of that is tracking well. And of course, at any time, you guys can reach out to me about what we share in our financial report. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Our next item on here is our college, career and college pathways, and our focus on our pathways center. And we have Dale, Brooke, and Yadira.
Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to share some information with you this evening. Before we get started, first, I just want to say a gigantic thank you to Brooke Nova, who holds this project and has facilitated a lot of work as we work collaboratively, looking at how to serve kids and to connect with schools. She's just an incredible leader, and I'm very thankful for her ownership of this project. I also want to thank Yadira Martinez, our guest board member. It's kind of a unique thing to have a board member part of a presentation, but Yadira has graciously agreed to be part of a little pilot as a way to engage board members more deeply in specific projects. So for about the last 3 months, Yadira meets with Brooke and I for about 30 minutes every 2 or 3 weeks. And we spend the first 15 minutes kind of bringing a topic that is associated with the Pathways Center to her. And we spend the last 15 minutes bouncing around some ideas and kind of mining her wisdom as a board member and as a community member. And it's just been an invaluable addition to our process. So thanks to Yadira for being willing to take a slide today, but more importantly, just being a very important voice in the process as we move the work forward of the Pathways Center, which affectionately named Pathways Center. We're going through a naming process, but that's how we're referring it. Okay, if you could advance to the next slide. So some of these slides are familiar, but just to kind of frame the work. So the last 12 months have posed a lot of positives, and that includes things like our one-on-one devices and getting our kids connected through comprehensive distance learning, the soft start and the advisories, and the continued tracking connections with our kids has been very positive. But there's also been quite a few challenges, including the impact to students and families, just the ongoing needs. Our students have been impacted, especially at the high school, due to increased responsibilities. There's been some challenges with attendance and participation. Many of our students have been called on to work or have needed to provide additional supports in their homes so that their parents can work or just to attend to some ill family members. And so passing rates have been impacted as well. So if you advance the next slide. So as we start thinking about how to address the needs of our students, of course, we look to data, and CTE is one of those areas that we know have impacted positively graduation rates, both in our district and across the nation. So as you know, the CTE concentrator is somebody who has taken at least 2 credits in an improved Perkins program, with at least 1 credit being at the intermediate or advanced level. Next slide. And so under Brooke and her team's leadership, we continue to increase the number of CTE programs we offer, and through partnership with our principals and counselors and CTE teachers, have continued to increase the number of students that are participating, including our non-traditional participants, and overall increasing the number of completers. So it's a very important data point as we start thinking about ways to reach out to our students and re-engage students who perhaps might be struggling to be engaged in our traditional school. So next slide. We also want to look at research and even just things in our own system that have been proven solutions, which include hands-on learning opportunities. A lot of our students say that the traditional way of sitting in seats isn't necessarily the way that they learn best. So we want to offer opportunities for kids to get hands-on opportunities to learn. Looking at hope theory and ways to make sure students understand that we believe in them, and restoring hope in the futures and their skills as they look towards the future for career and college ready. Continuing with the grade level curriculum, acceleration versus remediation. And even now we're very careful to talk about learning recovery. We're not using other terms. We're acknowledging the fact that our students have grown and they have learned things this year, even though there may be some learning recovery that we need to do. Our on-track monitoring and support, we've seen that historically in our district with the 9th grade on track and then moving into 10th grade. And really knowing our students by name, strength, and need allows us to make programs, but also support them in ways that they individually need. And then options for showing learning and attaining credit. And we're happy that that is also being supported through Oregon Department of Education, who has shared a variety of resources, including encouraging us to look at that policy as we support kids' attainment of credit in a variety of ways. Next slide, I believe, is for Brooke.
So knowing that our career and college pathways work is really a thread, not only I think we as not only a district, those who are on the screen, but as a community, look to our 21st century globally thriving students. Of course, moving forward, we're going to look at career and college pathways and the career and college readiness as a strength and an asset that we're going to leverage and move forward. I think all of us on the screen believe in the work, not only that has been huge within our high schools, now in our middle schools with career action labs, and then looking to elevate that within our elementaries, but also looking at the integrations of equity, social emotional learning, and how that shows up in career and college pathways. That, as well as that centralized access, and that's what we're really going to focus on tonight within that Pathway Center work, but that centralized access for a variety of experiences. And earlier I heard a challenge to think outside the box, and this process that we've been going through in the Pathway Center definitely challenges in that thinking outside the box, which is truly what is needed when we look at that awesome grad rate at 87%, but I know that we want to get to 100%. So it challenges us to think outside the box to meet that 13% and move our students forward. With that, if we can move to the next slide. It also challenges to think about the options that lead to opportunities. And so our roadmap has been something that not only has helped to anchor our work, but as leaders within our state, and we're about to present at the National ASCD conference this summer, our laser focus in that pre-K to 12 model really also helps us to think about what is next in the work, what do we need to refine, as we look at those proven solutions, as we look at the last 12 months, 13 months of our community how are we going to challenge ourselves to get even better within our work? Next slide. So within the Pathways Center visioning and planning, what an amazing community process this has been already. And as Dale has shared right now, and that's why we have an asterisk under the or over the HSD Pathways Center title. It is a working title. We are going through an official naming process that is about to get underway. This process really has also had us look at how do we organize ourselves in a way that is attention to detail, thinking outside the box, and folding in and leveraging the voices within our community, not only our nonprofit organizations, our post-secondary partners, our students, and really staying that student-centered focus has been such a, I think, a common thread throughout this Pathway Center planning time together. Next slide, I believe, is Dale.
So as you will recall, back in September, the funding for the Pathway Center was approved as we looked at using a variety of braided funds in order to fund it. What isn't on here is the 5 or 6 years previous that a group of us continued to hope and dream for this center. So very excited that it is coming to fruition. The blueprints were finalized in October, right after we solidified the funding, and Casey and his team and Adam went to work in terms of working with the builder and making sure that they could pull off most of our hopes and dreams for the center. Brooke started gathering planning teams and launched a common site where all the information is in terms of the vision and all the layers of work, which she'll dive into in a minute. And that started in December 2020. And I think when you see the level of work that's been done in such a short time under a pandemic, as we move from hybrid, I think you'll be very impressed. There are 11 planning teams that include building and district representatives. They're very diverse, robust teams, and really thankful for that. And then the 2-3 week, every 4 week check-ins with board member Yadira Martinez, which started in February, which has again been very important to our work. So on the next slide, that isn't my next slide, but I'll take it. We have a slide with pictures, and I think it's in your board packet. So make sure you peek at it. If you haven't driven by Fifth and Oak, every time I go that direction or I'm driving through, I take new pictures and send them. And I took Tiffany Mosqueda, principal at Big Picture there, out to have her take pictures by the sign, because we're just very, very excited about what that's going to bring to that campus and the community. So please drive past. So again, our charge here is to be stewards of resources. We need to look at the effectiveness of students that we serve, and as I shared earlier, we have a preliminary survey, but we will need to go out and get more information specifically as we begin to move programs and plan programs. I'm very, very thankful that we were able to bring kids back in at the high school level starting last week. I think those connections with their teachers and just being able to talk to people in person has just been invaluable in terms of us better understanding what they need. It's been very difficult for our teachers with a lot of screens off. And so it's just so wonderful to be able to connect with our kids. We continue with being stewards by creating pilot programs. Again, we've done some evening programs and we have piloted previous to the pandemic, we were piloting kind of like a 9th grade reboot. So we continue to do some piloting, and we will continue into the future. And then our responsibility is to evolve these programs and evaluate the pilots and maximize our fund for greatest impact. So we're really excited for this new space, which will allow us to serve people in sort of a core area that we can access a lot of resources.
I believe the next slide is mine, but I just have to acknowledge, Dale, I hear your dog barking. I had a 4-year-old interruption. I mean, we just keep going. So kudos to you, co-presenter. On the next slide, so we talked about the planning tasks and really that attention to detail in looking at those roles and responsibilities. Each one of these planning teams not only brings internal admin center staff, but our building voices and also our community partners in many of these planning tasks and teams. And as we look at tasks T1 to 11, it's also thinking from kind of a sequential timeline of what do we need to get in place to make sure that we are ready to go in that January 2022 opening that we're all very excited about. So not only looking at the process of construction, but also what needs to take place within each classroom space, in the welcoming front office space. How do we move staff in? How do we greet the students the moment they come? How do we start bringing in community partners to be able to speak to this work as well and work alongside our nonprofits who support many of our current programs within our schools? All of that has been tremendous in listening to each of these teams. We have team leads that represent different classifications of work who have really taken on leadership roles and responsibilities in each of these tasks too. So I want to thank each of them for how much work they have put forth in thinking through these teams and facilitating great discussions. Once again, to get us to think outside of the box and support the 13% of students that we want to make sure we get to the finish line, and those are those thriving career and college ready community members as we graduate students. Next. So when we look at that space, this is one of our first renderings. It's really exciting to see that the ground has broken, but I also just want to give you a picture of what that is going to look like in the upcoming months. When you drive by currently, you'll see some banners that just advertise that we are welcoming all students into this space, not only helping to support them with potential career plans, but also thinking about how to best support their academic needs and just next steps in that career and college readiness journey, which leads us to the schematic and floor plan on the next slide. So on the right-hand side, when we look at the lounge and lobby, and then also just some of the office spaces, what I want you to envision and know that the process of supporting students and families, the intention to detail of how to greet students and families, there's so much thought and discussion in that right-hand side of the schematic. It is, that is really the process of how we support students. First and foremost is what we really want to get right for our community, for our students and families. The classroom spaces are a variety of programs that either currently exist or that we're rethinking in terms of supporting students in potentially early college advisement or expanded options opportunities. We're providing a career action lab where students can experience a variety of high wage, high demand exploratory kits that lead to those our Hillsboro community job opportunities. Also bringing in classroom spaces where we can do shared learning and collaborate within and across programming that really serves age 14 to 24-year-olds. Next. So in some of those programs, and you see some of those classroom spaces, this is what some of those look like. Our Next Gen program, for example, is one of the programs that serves up to 24-year-old students. Or when we think also about our ITS program, that's another one that serves students up to 21. So when we think about 14 to 24, I just wanted to kind of share what that really means. But also thinking about how do we ensure that our high school counselors are also a part of that process. And we've talked about the Pathway Center being a hub and a connection and a thought partner for people like our high school counselors to say, hey, I have a student, I've gone through these different processes. What are some of the upcoming opportunities that maybe I'm not thinking about, or here's what I've explored, like, what are you hearing? Let's discuss that. It's also a connection for our students who are supported by OYCP. And as they transition back, how do we ensure they have a comprehensive support plan and maybe have time to do some of that career exploration as they go back into our home high schools. It's also to ensure ultimately there are predictable opportunities and access points along the way for every student in our school district. And so really when we also look at our grad coaches, such an asset, but ensuring that they are informed of the Pathway Center, can also use that as a resource, or as maybe a student's friend or parent is also seeking out more information, how do they additionally go to the Pathway Center too? But really that hub idea of receiving information, I think of it kind of as 211 for career and college readiness. I believe the next slide is Dale.
Well, I just wanted to add on, if you'll pop back. I think one of the important things that we keep talking about is, of course, it's a building and of course it's a place, but bigger than that, it's a resource. So we don't necessarily foresee like big picture, a student might be a Glencoe student and they may not go to the Pathway Center as changing from being a Glencoe student to the Pathway Center, but they may access the Pathway Center as a resource to help them with taking a class at PCC or an internship if their counseling team is unaware of it, or accessing the opportunity to learn more about Job Corps. So it really is kind of the one-stop shop for everything that is important and can be accessed by anyone in order to really try to take the luck out of who a student might connect with. They're going to get the best of the best, the most up-to-date information at the Pathway Center. And like Brooke was saying, their counselor will use it as a resource too. We've really appreciated the counseling voice on our committees who've said it's difficult to stay caught up on all the great things that are going on and all the changes. So we really want it to be a place that anyone can go to get the resources. Okay, so this slide is Yadira's, and we really appreciate Board Member Yadira Martinez's participation, and asked her to share a little bit about the work that we've been doing around community leaders and feedback loops.
Yes, so I was so happy to be approached to be able to be a part of this. I myself went through this non-traditional route after high school, well, in high school and then out. So this very non-traditional path. And one of the things I remember the most is just how to navigate that. And I mean, things worked out for me, I think, partly by luck and partly by people I met along the way. And so as I was learning more about the Pathway Center, I really drew this parallel to healthcare. And so this Pathway Center is really like, if healthcare was perfect, it would be a Pathway Center. So part of what makes healthcare so difficult is that patients have a hard time navigating the system, and all these branches of medicine are separate, so navigating that system is difficult. In education, I think we can see that parallel, that it becomes difficult, especially if, say, for example, you don't speak the language, and then we have all these resources spread out amongst different schools, and we have staff that is changing, and so up-to-date information always isn't available. So having one space, this centralized space where each staff member might not know everything, but they'll know something, they have like the knowledge in one specific area, but know that they have another colleague across the hall that, knows about something else completely. I mean, that's a resource amongst themselves, to be able, like, I might not have that answer for you, but I know somebody that will. And even in our schools, there is this for sure place that teachers and parents can go to find answers to what they're looking for. So really this whole centralized space that makes students the center of it is really important, because we want to make sure that they're presented with all education options, and just being able to have that all in one building is really amazing. And so through our chats, you know, we've meeting with and talking about all of the different things that are going to happen there. I mean, I myself even forget some of like, oh yeah, that's amazing. Like as Brooke and Neil were talking, you know, I was remembering like, oh yeah, we did talk about that. And so I myself, you know, having these regular meetings and like, there's so many things going on, and everything that this Pathway Center is going to encompass is just going to be great. And then making sure that we're, you know, talking to different leaders in the community, nonprofits also that are in the community, bringing the city. I mean, it's really, I think something that our district has been missing, and then, you know, something that's just going to make it so much better. And ultimately, we're going to reach that goal of making sure that our students are prepared and ready for college, and graduation rates are going to increase.
And Yadira, before we move on, I want to really acknowledge and one, thank you so much for being a thought partner in this process, but also the community connections that you've brought to this work as well. The support of this work means a lot. And I just want to once again thank you for your voice and your time in our process.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. You know, when I speak about being recognized within our state, it also really, I think, speaks so much to the leadership and communication of those organizations that are listed. So just taking a moment to thank them as well. The expansion of career and college pathways and the focus moving forward in the work is hand in hand with our partners in not only our pre-K-12 work, but then what does that look like beyond? So just want to also acknowledge that as well before we go on to early college, which is the next slide if you want to advance. So I also just want to give an update. One, because early college, there is a space within our Pathway Center, but the timing of where we're at in early college and giving an update, I think really was fit nicely into this presentation. We currently have gone through looking at cohort number 2. As maybe you remember, we have moved now to a centralized Hillsboro School District early college program under the leadership of Anya Hirschberger. And as we have centralized our early college program and really looking at that Hillsboro Downtown Center, also a huge thanks to the Hillsboro Downtown Center Director, Jose Esparza, and his work and leadership in making this happen. We are moving and selecting 65 additional students to be a part of the program next year, which will be 103 HSD students in total. When we make the selection process, and she has done an excellent job ensuring that our students who are selected reflect our overall student body representation in gender, race, ethnicity. She really engages the home high school in the process of interviewing every applicant, reviewing and recommending students, and then bringing forth a larger group to review their comprehensive process for the selection of those additional students. So I'm really proud of the work. Once again, it's a huge partnership within our own school district, but also in our community partnerships as well. And we look forward to just the continual expansion of early college within our own school district for our Hillsboro School District students. Advance one slide. So when I speak about early college and a little bit of the process as well, just wanted to share and show that our program also is about access and opportunities, specifically looking at students who are first generation college going students and giving them the access, the support and resources of a post-secondary experience as they are currently our Hillsboro School District students. So I just want to give a moment to look at that criteria, who our students are, and that value of really looking at our students in a selection process that's very comprehensive, reflective of our community, and that that access to first generation college going students have within this early college program. Dale, I believe that you have the next slide.
Yes, so just again, thank you to Anya for her leadership and Brooke for the early college program. We have appreciated being partners with our colleagues to the east, and we're also thankful to be able to just have our kids under our support and keeping them connected here in Hillsboro. And we have great partners right downtown at Hillsboro PCC downtown campus, which has allowed more access to diverse students. We have a real value in making sure that the early college participants reflect the makeup of our student population. And that is a goal that we are meeting or exceeding. So I'm very thankful for that. We have talked about 9th grade on track for a while, and you'll recall a couple years ago, we also had 10th grade on track as a board goal. And you can see the 9th graders who would be the graduating class in 2022, when they were freshmen, they were about 92% on track. They're about 70% on track right now. I've shared that information with you before, but it is of grave concern. And again, we're really thankful that we have them back so that we can see their faces and see what their needs are, and to start coming up with plans for learning recovery, really appreciating the infusion of additional funding, both for summer and into next year, as we do think out of the box and make sure that we get our kids back on track. But it is a heavy lift, and it's just one more reason I'm really thankful that this Pathways Center is coming on as it is. There's a little crystal ball effect that I'm really it's landing at exactly the right time. And so just want to thank the board for their support of it, and just excited to see where we can go next.
We also wanted to remind ourselves about our on-track work, because once again, that's a proven solution in HSD. The work that our buildings do in our on-track work is so valuable for our students, but also if we transition to the next slide, just a reminder that if we transition, thank you. There are plans in action that were started pre-pandemic of a 9th grade reset pilot program. So students, once again, who were more in that, at that time, are 8% of off track. How do we support our students early to get them back on track? And so we look forward to reactivating this program as we also bring on the Pathways Center, as that is one of the programs that we look forward to bringing on within that space and place. And the amazing work within our buildings does so much, but once again, outside of the box thinking and leveraging new ideas and strategies, which is evident within this pilot program, to get that additional 8%, or now, as we look at our off-track rate, to leverage more students to be on track once again. Going to the next slide. What does that take in terms of program investments? As we look at staffing, a 1.0 licensed staff who really supports the students within their academic, social emotional learning and career planning, doing a series of assessments, designing individualized plans, circling back with those students of, okay, did this work? Why and why not? Let's create a new plan. And then that licensed staff member to also, or the classified staff member to also be a resource and a connector to our community, to our comprehensive high schools, and supporting students in not only the information between the Pathways Center and our comprehensive schools, but also to be able to inform different stakeholders of the work and the space and place of the Pathways Center. Our early college staff member, as we acknowledged, is Anya Hirschberger, continuing her work and growing that program. How we fund those positions, it looks like braided funding in a variety of ways. So poverty funds, recapturing the ADM of our students that we were spending dollars to the Beaverton Early College Program, recapturing those dollars to pay for the early college staff member, our Measure 98 high school success investments, and now looking at our ESSER dollars to also be able to fund and support our programs and our staffing. Moving to the next slide. The communication planning gonna start talking about that one, and maybe we'll get to the next slide. It's okay, no worries. So there goes. So in communication planning, what's in process is inviting our high school stakeholders in, even folding in these conversations within our current Measure 98 biennium planning that's taking place for the 21 to 23 school year. Continuing that dialogue and discussion between Hillsboro School District and the Portland Community College Downtown Center. Many construction conversations are taking place right now. We're engaging in a marketing and communication planning process, not only for our Pathway Center and the renaming, but also a rebranding of the MEC campus and engaging not only student feedback, but also community stakeholder feedback in that process as well. And then future looking ahead is hiring that staffing, going through that official naming process, and then aspects of our programming and our staffing as we've placed that into our high school success biennium plan, ensuring that that's approved as well. So that takes us to, we've shared a lot of information, a lot of updates. Just one more thing, thank you, school board, so much for your continual support, encouragement in career and college pathways. I look forward to next month when we're going to share more information around our pre-K through 12th structure and some plans that we have in place looking ahead for next year. But just to thank you for your continual support in this work is a huge asset to not only our school district, but our community.
Thank you, Brooke. I do see some hands, excuse me, some hand raised on here. So Sheehan, I see you on here first, and then Jackie.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. I don't even know where to begin. This is so exciting. Thank you, Brooke, Dale, and Yadira for this amazing presentation. And I love hearing the updates that even in the midst of a pandemic, none of this work has been on pause. You guys have just kept going and kept moving and chugging along. And I am so appreciative of that and so enthusiastic for the plans. I think that, Dale, when you were sharing about this being a resource hub and that being really the main focus of this, I think that's absolutely critical for our students. And for me, I think the students that are top of mind are the students who don't have family members at home who speak English. So our multi-racial families, multicultural families that don't speak English at home, or even those students who don't have an active parent or guardian in home who would help them traditionally navigate some of these types of systems in life post high school. And when I think of those students, and I grew up in one of those families where, you know, my parents, you know, immigrating from Korea, when we came here, they didn't understand the dominant culture. They didn't understand the nuances of you know, early college credits and the importance of, you know, just exploring their different career pathways. And, you know, so being able to have a resource hub like this for our kind of those students who don't have that type of influence at home, I think is absolutely critical and crucial for them. So I just appreciate the thoughtfulness and the creativity in wanting to reach every single one of our students and really meet them where they're at. And I am absolutely so excited about this. So thank you guys for your work around this. And I look forward to how this plan unravels.
Thank you, Sheehan. Jackie?
I echo what Sheehan said. I'm so beyond excited for this and giving our students more options and opportunities to meet them where they are. Traditional school is not always the right for everybody, right? I did have a question about the Pathways Center. Are we looking at leveraging the school to career program at the chamber? And I mean, I know that my work partners with them and does 2 career fairs a year where we bring in high school students. So I'm just it wasn't on the list. And so I'm assuming we are, and I'm just going to assume that, but I also wanted to confirm.
And currently we're in discussions with the Hillsboro Chamber of Commerce School to Career Program in supporting really the expansion of our career and college pathways work in a variety of ways. So as we've been sharing kind of our upcoming plans and some of our thoughts around that pre-K to 12 support, their work that they do with us definitely shows up in those upcoming plans of guest speakers and support within those career day opportunities. Also, what is such a valuable asset to the MEC campus and space is that Hillsboro Big Picture program, and really leveraging those internship opportunities and that they support with as well. And how do we just continue to grow in partnership in a variety of ways on the MEC campus, but definitely continuing in discussion on just the expansion of that partnership.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. That was definitely one of the partners that I was looking for, is a Hillsboro Chamber, and regarding more like internships or even a job, applications and interviews. As Yadira mentioned, I'm also a non-traditional finisher, and I think that one of the things that I remember is just having the ability also to have somewhere, even just to go use a computer to fill out an application or to print some documents, to have students. One, I love that this is also on a public transportation line. It's close to the max. It's near our really good partner, PCC. So when we refer students, they can actually just walk there and talk to Jose. And I think that all of those things are great. The other thing that I just wanted to just mention was that the layout, when you put it on there, I saw that there was like a flexible space, and I just wanted to advocate for that need for students that sometimes they just need a space to actually do homework, or be able to sit there and have like I think about little workstations or something where they can have spaces that they can do that work. So and the last question that I had was just on the early college selection process. Is there like an amount from each high school that staff will refer, or like how are we going to do that selection? I would be more interested in seeing like what that actual process is, and then what is required of our students to have to. I wouldn't want that to also then create additional barriers or like hoops to jump through to get accepted or to do that. So how are we making it easy for them to participate in that? So those are my only two questions.
Yeah, I love all of them. So every comprehensive high school does have a ratio amount of spots. So in that, we this year looked at offering 12 spots per comprehensive, and then it also included Hillsboro Online Academy and MEC in that process as well. So in that selection process, there is a ratio of spots that every school looks at, and then as well, they rank the students, and then we have a wait list as well in that process. Anya also works giving presentations, multiple presentations to students and families of that process, but also will work hand in hand with students on those applications. She follows up with them if they're missing a component of the application, and follows up and asks how she can support in that work. In the criteria, a huge piece of it is that student interview, their story, their background, their experience, and really hearing from the student narrative of why early college is best for them in their next step. In the questions that she has selected within that process, it really is to inform more holistically of who that student is and why early college would best support them moving forward in next steps of career and college readiness. She has that process all in place. If you would like to see that, I'd be more than happy to share that as well. But there's a little brief overview of what that looks like over a span of, she does that for about 4 weeks kind of within each comprehensive school, and then including the HEA or HOA and MEC process. It takes about 4 weeks.
Yeah, I thank you, Brooke. That is wonderful. The only, I guess, follow-up or feedback that I have is not kind of cutting our ratio, or looking at just like per high school location, but also like on impact. I know that some of our schools are Title I schools or feeders, or looking at that to kind of help us inform how many students we're able to get from particular high schools that maybe have more student body that are impacted by the criteria that we're evaluating at, so that they have an opportunity to select more students. And I'll stop at that, and then I'll let Martin have a comment, and then Jackie has a comment as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add I didn't want to fail to weigh in with my compliments, my wholehearted endorsement, my salute to everybody involved, especially my colleague on the board, Director Yadira Martinez. Just magnificent. Brooke, you're a total superstar, and this is just kind of the work you do. I also wanted to opine that this is expensive work. The cost per student in this type of environment is higher than what it takes at a comprehensive high school. And if we're ever going to get to 100% graduation rate, doing this kind of work is imperative. And so we just have to be eyes wide about the task before us to find the resources we need to sustain this kind of approach to getting to 100% graduation rate. It's a little bit sobering when you keep the budget in mind, but I'm up for it. We have to keep pushing the state. The state school fund with the CSL calculations doesn't have this kind of work in mind. It doesn't envision funding us at this level. And so then we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do about that? Are we going to have a local option levy? Are we going to push the state and push the state and push the state? I don't really have an answer for that, but I think as a board, we just need to be real that there's a resource challenge as we look at this program. And as a board, we have to be behind the district and support it because this is costly work, but it gives us the results that we need as we inch closer to 100% graduation. So Dale and Brooke and Yadira, thank you for just this and the whole team behind this. It's not just the three of you. There's a huge army of HSD superstars who are delivering the service, at the point of need with each student. And that's another part of this. It is very unique to each student. And so my hat's off to everyone involved. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Martin. Jackie?
Well said, Martin. Good reminder. One question, is this program open to all students, including those students that maybe are TAG or the AP classes work for them, but they're looking for a little bit more of a challenge? Are those students included in this program at some level? I think the answer is yes. I just wanted to confirm.
I just feel like I want to also just, if Dale, if you want to field any of these questions, feel free, but I can definitely jump in. Yes, I mean, that's really, right now, if you go down the street, you'll see that the Center for All Students, that is a really clear message that we want to get out there as the ground is breaking. That it may be an AP student who is excelling, but also is maybe looking at additional career interests and wants to explore some of those career action lab kits. It could be a student who is definitely on track, but wants to consult in different ways. So I definitely want to emphasize that the process, the support and resources are for all students and families in this.
Thank you for being clear on that.
Yeah. And I would just add, I think every time we have a new committee that meets and we talk about things, we dream additional things. And I appreciate the conversation earlier just about it's time for out of the box thinking and just having a place that allows us to do some creative things. I think it's just going to be a gift to our kids. So yes, I would say definitely it's a place for all students. It's a resource for all of our community members, families, parents, neighbors, students to be, and I think we're just at the beginning of some really amazing opportunities and great ideas.
Well, I don't see any other questions, so thank you everyone for your presentation, Dale, Brooke, and Yadira. Also, what a superstar, serving on 2 different task forces. So I appreciate you utilizing your position to really bring this information back to our board members and for us to feel like we have some representation in those a different task force or committee. So I definitely just want to say thank you, Adira, for making the time. So with that, now we are moving to our next item on our agenda, which is information. And this is an administrative regulation update with Dell.
Excellent. So you may recall back in January, changes to policy IKFB graduation exercises was brought before you. And there was an ask specifically around the last portion of this policy that says graduating students will be able to wear items of cultural significance in accordance with consistently enforced rules established by the principal or designee. And you as a board asked for an administrative rule to be considered and written, which would ensure some continuity school to school. So you will see in your board packet on page 63 that there is an AR that has been created, and it will be a resource that will be embedded in the letters that go home. The link to the resource or the reference to the resource will be embedded in the letters that go home to families, reminding them of this right and this support from our district in terms of supporting their culture in graduation exercises and wearing items of cultural significance. You also asked as a board what would be the process in order to support students being able to bring their culture into their adornment. And so you'll see in that AR that there's some guiding practices, including us communicating it to families and encouraging families to really make sure that they understand the difference between a culturally significant piece of adornment versus something that that would be cultural appropriation, and there's a definition in there. As a first step, we want parents or guardians who have questions or concerns to talk directly to the principal. Every school has a designated person that supports 12th grade. It's either usually an assistant principal or dean who can be a resource. That would be a first step. And then if there were additional questions or concerns, they can meet with the principal. Myself in this role as I support high schools, and our district equity access and engagement officer, which is Fran, transitioning into that role. So we wanted families to make sure that if they had questions or concerns, there are a variety of steps that they can work through in order to have support of the celebration of their graduation and items of cultural significance in our graduation exercises. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. We have shared it with principals, we've talked through it, and as we write the letters out to families about guidance for in-person graduation, this policy and the AR will be referenced so that they will be reminded of that resource.
Thank you, Del. Next up, we have our HCU and HCA reports. And I do see Melody and Jill on here.
Oh, so hello. I have a pretty short report tonight. So I would like to start off tonight by sharing our appreciation for the teachers. They have been working alongside the classified for the past year through this pandemic and beyond. They have worked to make sure the students are engaged and excited about learning, even through the ups and the downs and the changes that have been asked of them. So for that and many other reasons, I and the rest of the HCU board and the classified staff would like to send our appreciation to the licensed staff. I would also like to talk tonight about the classified staff and the sub shortage in our district that most of you are aware of. We have several district employees out on any given day for different reasons, and some without coverage. There is a shortage of subs that can help with distant learning. And so we have little coverage, and we have little coverage for custodial staff, which puts quite an extra load on them. Many shifts go unfilled or one covering for most of the day. And with that, I would like to give a shout out to our custodial staff, along with the other classified and licensed staff that have stepped up and covered for coworkers that had to be out for a day due to an illness or the use of a personal day, or for many other reasons that they had to take the day off. The health and safety support people are always wiping down door handles, handrails, and emptying the garbage after lunches, along with many other tasks to help keep our schools clean and safe for staff and students. And the extra help during the day with sanitizing is great and greatly appreciated. But we are in great need for additional subs all the way around for both licensed and classified staff. I would like to announce that Debbie Langworthy, our bargaining officer and chief steward, has been added to the AFT Oregon Executive Board. She'll be joining me to help represent the K-12 school districts that are represented by AFT Oregon. So just added a few more jobs to her plate, or platter as we like to call them. And we are returning to the bargaining table on Thursday, and we're excited to get back to the negotiating a new classified bargaining agreement. We have an exceptional team, and we look forward to getting back to work. So see you guys on Thursday, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Melody. Jill?
Hi, good evening, Superintendent Scott, Chair Lopez, and school board directors. There was an ask at the last meeting to share how all things are going hybrid. Although it has been bumpy and there have been many challenges, including not enough available classified staff, as you just heard, I can say that we are working closely with HR to solve problems as they arise. I'm sure you know this, but I feel compelled to share that your staff have had to pivot 3 times in how they teach in the space of 1 year and are bending and stretching in many ways every day. They are working hard, often beyond their capacity. So I want to give a shout out to the HSD licensed and classified staff. And thank you, Melody, for the kind words, and I'll pass that along. I want to talk a little bit about recently our neighbors experienced firsthand the vitriolic and misplaced actions of a fringe group attempting to divide our community by targeting teachers and union members doing equity work. Tonight, I'm speaking to you from the perspective of a union leader, an elementary teacher, a mother, and a white woman. As the Hillsboro Education Association president, I've had the privilege to facilitate a new committee within HEA called the Anti-Racist, Anti-Biased Teacher Coalition, where our goal is to identify and address the many layers of systematic racism that naturally exist in our schools, community, and even in our own union. I have learned so much in this role, including how much I truly don't know. With the help of this diverse committee, which includes Black, Indigenous, people of color, and lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning members, and those who look like me, I hope we will make changes in our negotiated agreement as well as partner with HSD to make equity in the district and by extension in the community to bring about equity. Thank you. I commend HSD for the creation of the new position, Equity Access and Engagement Officer, as it is one more step in the journey of addressing and dismantling institutional racism in our schools. I think we all know that our success in this work won't be just one new position, nor will it be achieved through equity committees in our buildings or professional development for staff and administrators. Rather, it will be a combined and collaborative effort by all of our stakeholders in HSD with a deep commitment to leaning into the work that will result in success. What does success in equity work look like in HSD today? Certainly, as it says on our website, it looks like eliminating institutional barriers and creating access and opportunities that benefit each student. It looks like asking BIPOC teachers what their BIPOC students need. It looks like space and grace for conversations and learning. It looks like grading and testing systems that allow for diversity in learning styles, cultures, and languages. It looks like a world where students' identities will not predict or predetermine their success in school. It means we take a deep look at ourselves, even when it feels and seems uncomfortable. Make no mistake, you are a school board that wants to do this work. It is clear by your actions. So I'm here tonight in solidarity on behalf of my fellow educators who want us to all keep doing this important work and keep getting better. I'd like to end tonight by quoting a fellow local president, Sarah Schmidt from Beaverton. She said, "The foundation of equity is love. We do equity work because we care deeply about our students and our community, and we need to do this work." Thank you.
Thank you, Jill, and Melody, both for your report outs. And as the chair and past board member for 4 years, I am so happy to receive that report today. Thank you so much. Our next item is discussion time, and the first group is our student representatives. And I don't see Devlin here, and I know he had a track meeting tonight, so he is off, but we have Maya Smith.
Hi, everybody. I don't believe I have much to add to this discussion other than to thank you all for making sure everyone in our district stays safe and stays healthy. So thank you.
Thank you, Maya. Next, we have our superintendent's time.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity just to address everybody. As Jill mentioned, Jill and Melly both mentioned some of the challenges that we've had getting up and running. And even with those challenges, there's so much to celebrate. Being in schools and seeing the kids back in school and thriving again is just such a celebration of hope. And it just makes us even more excited about the fall and being able to come back in even a more comprehensive manner. So have really enjoyed that. Kids have definitely settled into a rhythm, and it's just a glimpse of where we're going to go here in the near future. A lot to celebrate tonight. If you look through the agenda, many of the items that were on here are a culmination of a ton of work that's gone on for even some of those for a couple of years now, others for just a year or so. If we look at the school resource officer issue tonight, absolutely amazing the work that was engaged in order to get to where we're at. It was incredibly a long process, and it involved families and community members and a lot of outreach. And what I want to appreciate is not only the staff members that engaged in that, but the insistence of the school board to make sure that our process was transparent and it was visible and it was comprehensive. I think your involvement in that and your insistence that process look a certain way made our process so much better, and I'm just really appreciative of that. Student reps, I was thinking back to years ago when we first brought this up, and it didn't fly the first time we talked about it, and this board has just embraced the notion of having a student voice that is that's there every meeting that we have, and they're given a platform to share and to share a perspective that we otherwise wouldn't have. So just really appreciate that. And then of course we wound up with the Pathways Center, and that is work that we've talked about for a couple of years now. And just your understanding of the need to do that, to make sure that all students have the opportunity to be successful and not just some students. I think it's going to be an absolute home run for us. And I love Yadira's quote, if healthcare were perfect, it would be a pathway center. Love that, and really look forward to the benefits that that's going to provide our students. So to all the staff members who presented tonight, thank you. And to the board for your insistence and encouragement and holding us accountable on these issues. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And next we have our director's time. I'm just going to go down the list here that I see. So the first person that I have up here is Jackie, and then Mark, you're on deck.
I don't have a lot to add. Everybody said everything. I couldn't be more happy to be on this board and participate and be part of such a positive, encouraging, professional group of people. And I hope I get to do it for another 4 years. I just really, really, really do. I stopped for not one bus today, but 3 buses today. And each time I was like, yeah. And I'm sure that the bus driver thought, who is that weird lady going, yeah. But it made me smile. I was so happy. I was so happy to see buses. I know it's the little things that give me joy these days. So yeah, buses. That's it for me.
Thanks, Jackie. Mark, and then Martin, you're on deck.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, like I mentioned upstairs, thanks to the staff for being flexible and trying to manage just how much student interaction we can have in person, and trying to work towards as traditional graduation ceremonies as we can possibly have. Chair Lopez mentioned getting vaccines. My second one's tomorrow. So, I'd be looking forward to participating in that as much as I possibly can. And hopefully maybe some kind of in-person hybrid or stream board meeting by the end of the year would be great as well. So, what I said upstairs, the health authority thinks that we are in a race between vaccines and variants. And even with 9 counties going back into a stream, the governor still has expressed optimism that perhaps by early summer, to me that means June, late June, graduation-ish, that we might not even need the idea of a county risk level. So, while things may be grim, darkest before a storm, I understand my crystal ball may be a little bit cloudy, because as numbers came down all last August into September, I thought we'd be back in classrooms November 1st, and it didn't work out that way. So I'm free to admit that I don't have expectations anymore, but I'm hopeful that that we will soon be coming out of this and get things under control and have as many in-person opportunities as we can. And I look forward to participating in that. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Martin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just add, it is a privilege to be a part of this group, and not only just this group, but this organization. I am so proud to be HSD. And I'll just add that I'm also really happy to be a part of the contract negotiation process with Kana and Melody and the HCU contract negotiations that is ongoing. And that's a wonderful process to be a part of as well. So I feel privileged. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. And next we have Sheehan, and then Yadira, you're on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jackie, I'm with you about the buses driving by. Anytime one drives by, I just stare out the window and I just watch them. And it is so exciting and just a light at the end of the tunnel, I think. And I think that, this year has been so challenging in many ways. And I feel like right now we're kind of able to take a little bit of a breather, and to be able to see some of our hard work and all of your hard work really play out has just been really encouraging to see. So thank you all for the presentations tonight. Very exciting. And one other thing that I'll add is the Administrative Professionals Day. I just want to publicly recognize and thank Rose and Kathy. We would not be able to do what we do without you. So thank you for just all of your behind the scenes work, just day in and day out. We really appreciate you keeping us in line in so many ways. So thank you so much. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Shan. And then last but certainly not least, we have Yadira from.
Yeah, we covered so much great things today in this meeting. It's like one of those meetings that you just feel good at the end of it. So the combination, of a lot of work, like Mike said, and also just happy to be part of this group, and looking forward to good things next year. Hopefully we are all in person. I know I'm doing my part, putting as many, doing as many vaccines as I can. So, so I've been doing that, and it's been great. I also, we just started to get back into the schools and placing sealants on kiddos as well. So everything is progressing, and I hope that we continue in that direction.
Thank you, Yadira. So you all thought that we stopped at student representatives to the board, but we have babies representatives also to the board, as you can see on your screen. And they definitely bring that joy. And I think, as Yadira mentioned, a lot of our meetings lately have been kind of a little dark cloud over us, and trying to, move as fast as we can or respond as quickly as we can to the changing pandemic guidelines, our numbers, our county risk. And today it just really feels like we turned a page almost on on our meetings that we've been having. And I'm so thankful that we're almost there. And it seems like we're almost, back to getting to that work that we are really passionate about, and centering around the education and the needs of our students and our families. So it's really exciting to be here, even though, like it has been said before, there's no timeline for this. The pandemic kind of creates a timeline. So that's what we have guided our work around. I also just wanted to say that I'm really thankful for all the work that you have all done, our cabinet and administration, all of the high schools, elementary schools, and middle schools. I mean, it has been a journey to get all of our kiddos back in the classrooms, and the amount of work that our classified staff, our licensed staff have been doing. I'm constantly amazed at our organization, and also really proud of where we are. And one of the things that I wanted to just highlight, and I think Jill mentioned it earlier, is that we did create this position for our diversity, equity, and inclusion work, but really it's a responsibility of all of us for it to be successful. And Francesca, I'm really appreciative of you joining and serving in that position, but it's really to shepherd us and almost project manage us. It's not to solve the issues. That's really on our leadership. That's really on our staff, on us as a board of directors. So I really just want to highlight how we all have to carry that. And I appreciate Jill just mentioning that today. So with that, we are finishing just a few minutes early that you get tonight. So thank you so much. We're adjourning.